vehicle.
Right.
Police said earlier that officers were shot by the
And I will
suspect
send
when they
you
arrived
the
at the
alderman's
scene
number
after receiving an emergency
shortly,
call
as soon as
saying
I
a
get a
woman
few
was
things
stabbed. The officers
taken
were
care of
apparently
here.
without bulletproof vests.
Okay.
After the arrest, one man who was evacuated
And you got
from the
the
building told
revised,
local
because I'm not
media,
going to have bright screen.
"I'm relieved that all my family members are safe. Violent crimes are rare in Japan. It has strict gun control laws and only a handful of gun-related crimes annually." I'm Karen Chamas.
The Dow fell 35 points yesterday. The S&P rose 36 points. The Nasdaq rose 213 points. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see sunny skies here for today, a high of 70 degrees. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, mostly clear, low near 50. Saturday, sunshine, a high of 77 degrees. Then by Sunday, partial sunshine develops, a high of 77. Memorial Day Monday, mostly sunny skies, a high around 83. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 50.
Finding great people to hire is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's pretty difficult, right? Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack, so they take it to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. And that's why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. They have so many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Stop your grinding with Brooks Night Guard.
Are you waking up in the morning with a sore jaw, headaches, ringing in your ears, all because you're grinding and clenching your teeth at night? That's exactly what was going on with me. I ended up going to a dentist, and he wants to charge over $600 for a night guard. That's when I found the Brooks Night Guard. You mold it at home to the top or bottom teeth. Other mouth guards go all the way to the back, which allows the back teeth to touch. This is where most of the grinding and clenching occurs. The Brooks Night Guard redirects the bite force away from the back teeth, reducing jaw pain while still protecting the teeth. This unique design is what makes Brooks Night Guard different from all other traditional grind guards. Order your Brooks Night Guard today and get 10% off plus free shipping. Go to brooksnightguard.com and enter the code BRUX91. That's BRUX91.
Stop your grinding with Brooks Night Guard.
Chicago's progressive talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
This is Morgan Freeman, executive producer
I
of the
just sent you
documentary
Alderman
film,
Moore's
The
number.
C Word. And I'm here to tell you that defeating takes breakthroughs. A breakthrough is the start of something extraordinary. To be breakthrough is to be brave. Many small breakthroughs can lead inevitably to a big breakthrough. The kinds of breakthroughs that advance the fight against cancer. The ones that save lives by the millions. You are the breakthrough. You, the patients, taking part in clinical trials. You, the scientists, doing next-level research to beat cancer. You, the doctors and nurses who tirelessly care for everyone along the way. Let's be the breakthrough.
To learn about screenings and clinical trials that may be right for you, go to standuptocancer.org/breakthrough. Stand Up to Cancer is a program of the Entertainment Industry Foundation. Please talk to your healthcare provider about appropriate screenings and clinical trials that may be right for you.
This is a WCPT 820 Heartland Signal News Minute.
This is beyond the norm. And if you describe this as a negotiation of both sides issue, you're misleading the public.
That's California Congressman Ted Lieu. Vice Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, speaking at a May 23rd Capitol press conference on the debt ceiling crisis House Republicans have created by insisting on massive spending cuts in exchange for raising the statutory debt limit.
Republicans have this button here that they push, and it's crash the economy. So they can say, hey, you don't provide billions for a border wall, we're going to push this button and crash the economy. A default is permanent. We can't reverse it. Once it happens, companies and businesses and banks and other countries will know we defaulted once on our debt. And that is going to have permanent ramifications for the American people and their children and their grandchildren.
For WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal, I'm Andy Miles.
This is a WCPT Civil Rights Snapshot. We're 1 minute away. League, or the NAAL, was formed in 1887 by Timothy Thomas Fortune. Fortune sought to create one of the first all-black civil rights groups in the nation. Being born into slavery and seeing the rise of groups like the KKK, he felt as he needed to fight these injustices by giving a voice to those without one. He proposed the formation of this group in his editorials for the New York Age. He founded the group with the goal of combating suppression of voting rights and inequalities in black and white school funding, among other inequalities. For instance, many groups went about tackling lynching and Jim Crow laws, while other groups instead focused on swaying political opinion and gaining political power. The first national conference took place in Chicago in 1890, where they ratified the Constitution, committed to the fight for the rights of African Americans across the nation. After years of financial hardships, the NAAL split up in 1893. This wasn't the end of their fight by any means, though, as they sowed the seeds of change for future groups like the NAACP to come and change the world. Please stay vigilant about our civil rights. The fight is never over.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world.
Please make sure to count me in.
We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is May 26th, 2023. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars. Hey, morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, everybody. And that is my official page. Please go there. Go to Twitter at Santita J, and please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Because of the traffic that I've been getting, and I'm about to launch my website, everybody, yay! Because of the traffic that I've been getting, they want you to go to YouTube. So please help me out, everybody. Daryl and Jewel. Dave is already over there. No sound is over there yet on YouTube. Ooh, what's going on? What's going on? We have to find out what's going on. But I want you to meet me over on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And let's talk about Memorial Day. Did you know that it was started by black people who'd just been freed from slavery, who saw that the soldiers had been dumped in mass graves without any honor, dishonoring the war dead, which is not protocol at all. They dug them up, gave them individual burials, and had a ceremony to honor their lives. We're going to be talking about that. And out of that moment grew a peace movement. Anne and Anna Jarvis and Julia Ward Howe, they came up with Mother's Day. They said, we want to end all wars for all times. We don't want any more war. Indeed, most of our soldiers, 2/3 of them, died from disease, from filth that they had to live with. Yeah, so there's a lot to this. There's a lot about our collective history that is obscured, and we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about whether we really love the troops. Did you know that our troops, not the veterans, our troops, just to start there, they over-index in usage of payday loan centers? And it's not because they're young and they're just making a paycheck. They don't make enough money. Their money can't get them from payday to Monday. So they use payday loan centers at a higher rate than the civilian population. So all of this money that is being made by the Pentagon, a fourth of which goes to military contractors, it is not going to our troops. So let's talk about that. We're going to have Dr. Damon Arnold, who's a veteran, and of course the former director of our Illinois Department of Public Health, and a wonderful panel to talk about Memorial Day, and whether we really love the troops. And the Pentagon's not getting cut, but no one's talking about raising the salaries of the troops. So let's get to some of these headlines, everybody, on this Memorial Day weekend. And I want to get your thoughts about Memorial Day. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278 as we get things started on this Memorial Day weekend. What promises to be a busy travel season. Domestic travel, the prices are down. International travel, the prices are up. But are you going to be traveling this weekend? And we're going to be talking with Dr. Shanina Knighton about how we should eat indoors or outside, how we can remain infection-free, everybody. It's possible. How should you serve your food? How should you prepare your food? Think about that. Call me at 773-763-9278. According to CNN, America's political leaders have less than a week to hammer out a debt compromise before the country could run out of money to pay its bills. Some Democrats are losing patience over seemingly deadlocked talks. Several members have warned the White House their party's votes are being taken for granted and their support for any debt deal is not necessary. So we're having problems not just on the Republican side, but on the Democratic side. Credit ratings agency Fitch placed the top-ranked U.S. credit on a negative watch, and 30-year mortgage rates have risen because of the looming uncertainty. There are international concerns also, everybody. China and Japan are the largest foreign investors in the American government debt. That is to say, they are our biggest creditors. That's right. China and Japan collectively, they own just more than half of America's debt, everybody, which means they could be negatively impacted by the U.S. default as well. Indeed, many people say that the only people who really be hurt, not just our Americans, but our allies. So we're going to have to think about that. Together, they own $2 trillion, more than a quarter, actually a quarter apiece of the $7.6 trillion in debt. The White House has laid out two separate national plans to combat anti-Semitism and gender-based violence. President Joe Biden introduced a new quote, whole of society plan, the first of its kind, that tackles anti-Semitism. He called it, quote, the most ambitious and comprehensive U.S. government-led effort to fight anti-Semitism in American history. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster has signed a bill into law that will limit most abortions as early as 6 weeks, when most women find out that they are pregnant. A growing list of Republican-led states, including almost all of the U.S. South, have introduced sweeping abortion restrictions in the wake of last year's Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 63 degrees. It will be sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 81 degrees sunny. In the NBA, hey, the Celtics just keep coming back. 110 to 97 over the Heat. I mean, can you believe it? They were on the brink of elimination, down 3-0. And now, guess what? They have won 2 games while the Heat have won 3. What do you think is going to happen, everybody? In the NHL, the Golden Knights 2, the Stars 3. The Golden Knights lead that series 3-1. In the WNBA, hey, the Mystics will be playing the Sky. That's right, tonight. Then the Mercury, Mercury, they won over the Lynx, 90-81. They'll be playing, the Lynx will be playing the Aces this Sunday. The WNBA season has started, everybody. Please give them your support. In Major League Baseball, the Blue Jays will be facing off against the Twins today, and the Tigers 7, the White Sox 2, and the Mets 10. The Cubs 1, and those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. You know, I wanted to give you some good news today, something really short and something that I hope that will help you along your way. I'm a big fan of Florence Scovel Shinn. She's an inspirational writer who was popular about 100 years ago. She has several books, and it's The Game of Life and How to Play It. Your Word is Your Wand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're typically sold 4 in 1. And it really teaches you not just the power of positive thinking, but the logic of it. How we have to be very careful about our words and about our actions, about our thoughts. And I read something that she said that really has stayed with me. I read this book first more than 30 years ago, just out of school. And Mrs. Betty Odom, she owns the Odom Cosmetique in Chicago. I urge you all to go to it in Hyde Park. If you look at my skin, it's in great shape because I learned a whole lot from Mrs. Odom, who used to be on Sunday in Chicago on NBC. She's one of the pioneering African-American women in television and media in this town. And she's also a registered nurse. And she also brought the beauty movement to Chicago. And she's a gorgeous woman. Odom's Cosmetique in Hyde Park, everybody. Don't forget about it. Well, in this book, something's jumped out at me. No man is your friend. No man is your enemy. Every man is your teacher. No man is your friend. No man is your friend. No man is your enemy. Every man is your teacher. We all perform different roles, even in one person, in each other's lives. Sometimes you like people, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you call them your enemies, sometimes they're your frenemies. Whatever it is, they're always teaching you. And you tend to attract someone who, in many ways, is like you. Someone, your opposite really is your twin. They're the other side of you're both a coin, and they're your opposite side. Or they're just in your life to teach you something, to make you more loving, to make you more patient, to make you more kind, to make you not think the worst of someone before you really know their story, right? And remember, the Bible tells us it commands us to love one another, not to like one another. No, you don't have to like everybody. You're not going to. But when you love people, you're not going to be unkind to them. When you love people, you really try to find the best in them. When you love people, you try to understand them. And so in our lives, we don't have enemies. And you don't have friends either. You have great, great teachers. Remember, the Bible promised us that we would have a place at the table in the presence of our enemies. And when you hear it the first time, it sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, in the presence of my enemies, well, your enemy is God's child too. And as God loves you, God loves them. So remember, just look at everybody in your life as a great teacher. And maybe when you see the person in your life, for however long they're there, it could be someone you walk past who just says something to you that settles in on you as you walk past them, or maybe later on in your life. Know that they're your teacher. Know that we're all teaching and reaching each other. And that is the good news. No man, no woman is your friend. No man, no woman is your enemy. Every man, every woman, every person, every child, everybody is your teacher. And Joyce Anderson, I will give you the business name again. Her name is Betty, Bettye. I'll write it up here on the screen. Betty Odom, O-D-O-M, like Lamar Odom, Odom's Cosmetique. Odom's Cosmetique. It's in Hyde Park. And when you see her, you won't believe her age. She looks a good 30 years younger than she is. She's in her 80s, but has always been very fit. She's a registered nurse. She went to Meharry to get her medical training. And you might remember many years ago, there was a very, very popular dentist here, Dr. Herbert Odom, who was her husband, who became this boxer in the middle of his big career. He was a big, big dentist here back in the day. And he was featured in People magazine, Good Morning America, the Today Show, all of that, because he'd always wanted to be a boxer, and he actually won some of his matches. But she, after being on NBC and having this stint in television, having been this great model, and doing so many things, she had spent a lot of time in Europe, and she said, I want to bring two black women in particular beauty. I want you to know that you should have access to learning how to care for your skin, learning how to care for your whole body. Your skin is the biggest organ in your body. That's it. So that is what she's done. And fortunately, because she's one of my mother's sister friends, I've known her all of my life. And so when she opened Odom's Cosmetique, which was when I was on the verge of puberty, I started using her products, and I've never stopped. So Odom's Cosmetique in Hyde Park. Please call them, go there. They are worthy of your business. I have been going there all of my life. They made me up for my prom, y'all. Yes, they did. I loved it. Oh, that's right, Miss Milo. But of course, Mrs. Odom oversaw it all because she didn't want me to wear too much makeup because she knew my mother was. I love you, everybody. I hope that message served you well this morning. We have got Dr. Shanina Knighton. Hey, Dr. Nina. That is her tag, but that's what we call her every day. Hey, Heydrnina. And you know Jewel is going to put that up, everybody. Jewel is going to put that up. We love you. Jewel and Linear Bob. Hey, Linear Bob. I want everybody to call me as we talk about Memorial Day. Did you know it was started by black people after they saw these Union soldiers had been dumped in graves without honor? Much like at the end of Glory, when they put the black and the white soldiers together, they were like, yeah. Well, there's something to be said for that. So let's talk about That's right, Jewel. What you say? There you go right now. All right, Dr. Shanita Knighton, we are on the verge of kicking off summer. Barbecues, people cooking outside. People now that the COVID emergency is over, people feel that COVID is over. And so we're going to be breathing over it. We're going to put the potato salad in the middle of the table or put it on the serving table, and everybody's going to be breathing over it and over the ribs and the chicken and everything else. Whew, how should we serve our food this weekend? What should we do, Dr. Knighton?
Good morning, Santita and friends. So I think one of the biggest things to consider is who's coming over. Meaning, are you doing something? I mean, it's just being honest. Like, are you doing something that's more on a smaller scale? Are you doing something on a larger scale where you're inviting people that you may not necessarily break bread with? So that's the first important question. If everyone's getting potato salad, let's say off the kitchen counter, which typically would be higher than waist level, and they're getting food, I think the biggest thing to emphasize is that if it's self-serve, just telling people not to talk over the food. The other thing that I would also advise is to make sure that it is emphasized to not leave utensils inside of the food. Make sure that there's a saucer or something for someone to put the spoon on. What tends to happen is this. Let's say that you're going down a buffet line and people are getting salad, or people are getting potato salad, or they're getting macaroni and cheese, right? And everyone's hands touch the spoon. What happens is you end up with one person that as the macaroni starts going down a little bit, that spoon slides down into the macaroni and cheese too, which means that all of the contaminants that are on the handle of the spoon that has been touched by many, many guests is now directly touching the food that everyone will consume. You cannot say that everyone is going to clean their hands correctly, but you can assure that the contaminants from others' hands is not laying directly onto your food. So I would make the recommendation that if you are going to have self-serve, emphasize people not talking over the food as one. Actually, three things. Cleaning their hands, so having hand sanitizer before anyone even approaches the line. Two, making sure that people know they should not be talking over the food. They should be talking when they get back to their tables or where they're getting ready to eat. Three, making sure and emphasizing how important it is to not leave spoons inside of the food, because they can slide down directly into the food and therefore lead to contaminants. So those would be like my three major things that I would emphasize when it comes to certain foods, Santita. And I think guests can relate when they talk about seeing the spoon laying over in the macaroni or directly touching the chicken, or, you know, you're seeing it directly on salad. I emphasize salad is cold, salad is wet, salad has droplets. If people are talking and droplets is going directly onto the salad, that is a cold food. That is a direct transmission. And it's emphasized, again, to make sure that you are not talking over the food. Try to make sure that it's at least at waist level, opposed to someone having to lean over to serve. If someone doesn't have that capability, it may be best to have servers opposed to having people self-serve. So those would be my key things that I would emphasize. If someone is having to share the same tables, let's say you have to rotate tables, make sure that the table is being cleaned in between people that will utilize it. Because, again, we break bread, we have conversation. So if there's droplets that are spilling on the table, you want to make sure that you're cleaning them up in between each guest.
So
as it comes.
So do you assign one person from the family or someone you trust to do that, or just a group of people? Should you sit down with people who, should you sit down, number one, should you assign servers? Should you sit down with him and go over these practices? Should they be wearing masks when they're around the food, gloves?
I would suggest so, yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. No, I mean, I'm just asking you because these are difficult conversations to have. We can feel some kind of way about things, and we'll say, you know what? What, you don't trust me? You think I'm nasty? Because that will come up too.
It will, but I think the biggest thing is we've done things wrong for so long that acknowledging and saying, hey, I just want to do this because we've done things wrong for so long. People can put it on me. I've been listening to Dr. Knighton, and Dr. Knighton said that this is one of the reasons why people get sick, and I just want to share that knowledge, and I want us to incorporate this practice into our family.
Okay, so very quickly, we got about a minute and a half. What do we need to do?
Have a conversation, even though it's going to be difficult before guests arrive. Or even when they arrive, hey, we're going to do things a little bit different this year. As we know, germs are still going around, but we just want to make sure that everyone stays safe. So as you're walking over the food, because droplets can spill down over the food, don't talk over the food. Just remember, to clean your hands properly before you're getting ready to touch the spoons, and do not leave the spoons laying directly in the food, because they may fall over in the food, and any germs that are on the handles of the spoon can touch the food directly. Those two things are key, and if you can have those conversations, they go a long way. But again, I'm okay with you needing to put it on me and say, well, that Dr. Knighton said, opposed to you thinking that there should be conflict within the family. Because as I mentioned, in order for us to normalize being well, we have to normalize new practices. We have to normalize how we do things different. I will tell you that when we did Thanksgiving and we did prayer at Thanksgiving, it was very quiet during the serving of the food. But when people got back to the table, we were able to fellowship and have a good time. It was something that was different. But when you explain the rationale to people, they get it, because no one's intention is ever that they want to eat a meal and get sick.
Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. Hey, Dr. Nina. Hey, Dr. Nina, everybody. Put these best practices, put them in play. Put them in play, because you will need them during this holiday season, everybody. While we're breathing over the food and everything, please don't do that while you're serving it. Oh my gosh. I guess keep it covered too while people, doing the buffet thing, because that's what we do Memorial Day, right? So please be careful, everybody. Sending you so much love, Dr. Knighton. Everybody, let's talk about Memorial Day. Memorial Day was actually started by Black people. Did you know that? To honor the war dead. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Thank you, Dr. Shanina.
Absolutely.
Oh, I had to ask you about that. Oof.
Yeah, but think about it. People don't want flies touching their food, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we gotta also think about other contaminants. People say, "Oh my gosh, flies are nasty." Yeah, well, dropping from people's mouths can be nasty too.
Oh.
So you want to make sure we're staying safe.
Well, but you don't think about the droplets. No one really thinks about that. You don't. But you should. We should be thinking about that all day long. Mm-hmm.
It is. And the thing is, and this is again going back into the normalization factor. We have to normalize that germs are things that we cannot see, but they're around us all the time.
Attorney Connolly's on the line.
Okay. Thank you so much. Well, do you know what? I'm going to have to pivot but you can stay here and listen because we're talking about Memorial Day. Okay. Trying to find
Look, you told me about Mother's Day earlier this month. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah.
Giving me some history.
It was started by Black people. Absolutely. Absolutely started. Erin Connolly?
Good morning, Santita.
Hi,
Good
how you
morning, friends.
doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Great, just, in the midst right now.
I hear that.
Trying to get these things together.
Attorney Jones is on the line.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hey, Attorney Jones, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Santita. Doing well. How about yourself?
Great. You've got Attorney Connolly on.
Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Daryl. How are you? Nice to
Doing well.
hear your voice this morning.
Same on this side of the pond. How's the weather over there in Chicago?
Oh, my goodness. Well, we were at the Cubs game last night, and it was like 45 degrees with the wind whipping through as we watched the move.
Wow.
So it's typical Chicago, beautiful one day and then an adventure the next.
Well, you
How
had
about
me
you?
jealous when you said you were at the. You had me jealous when you said you were at the Cubs game.
Well, next time
That's
you're
the one.
here, Santita and I will take you as long as you stay out of Wisconsin.
That's right. I mean, come on. What was that?
That's kidding.
No, I was like,
Actually,
we're gonna come through Chicago. I'm like, really?
We're back in 30 seconds.
Okay. I mean, wow.
Yeah, I was trying to skate over that comment, Aaron.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Well, actually, I'm going to try to make a Cubs game on, I think it's July the 18th or 19th or 20th, one of them. They're playing the Washington Nationals around the convention time.
Oh, perfect. That'll be wonderful.
I can't promise. I'll be there before. I'll be there after.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Let's talk about Memorial Day. Let's talk about Memorial Day, which in that context of Memorial Day, we had a lot of things going on. The Civil War was devastating to the United States, and you can see it because we're still litigating it, fighting it today. Civil War is hard because it's a war between brothers and sisters. Families break up over these wars. That having been said, this war, when it was over, a lot of things came out of it. You had Julia Ward Howe and Anna Jarvis who were pushing for Mother's Day for peace. They wanted to end all war forever. They also wanted sanitary conditions because 2/3 of America's soldiers in the war didn't die of their wounds. They died of filth. Poor hygiene conditions. We take a lot for granted now. But be very, very clear. These people were struggling, and many of them died because instruments were not cleaned, because these makeshift hospitals were filthy, because they were in the mud. It was just dirty. They weren't able to bathe, on and on and on and on. They weren't able to dress their bandages and get them cleaned out. Get the wounds cleaned properly, all of that. So there's that. But there is a tradition when you are in war that you're supposed to honor the war dead, no matter what. There was some corporate media commentator, reporter, who made note of the fact that these Russian soldiers, I think there was an American mercenary who was killed, and they were handling him with honor, because that is what you're supposed to do. No matter what side you're on, when someone is killed, when a soldier is killed, you honor them. You honor them because you're in the same arena, if you will. And so the work of honoring the dead began right away all over the country. And so many towns around the United States called themselves the birthplace of Memorial Day. But actually, there's a wonderful book by David Blight, Race and Reunion, The Civil War in American Memory. that says, no, let's go all the way back. This goes back to May 1st, 1865 in Charleston, South Carolina, where formerly enslaved African Americans saw that soldiers, white soldiers, had just been dumped in mass graves, which is not a noble burial, everyone. They dug them up and they put them in marked graves. And then they had a ceremony that involved more than 10,000 people honoring them. So let's talk about that. Mostly black people. They participated in this tribute. They sang songs. They had more than 3,000 black school children who paraded around this racetrack holding roses, singing the Union song, John Brown's Body, and on and on and on and on. But many of us don't know the history of Memorial Day. And it's important for us to know our collective history because it'll help us to really understand who we are. Who we are. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. And it might help to shape our understanding of where Memorial Day was going, where in this context you had a Julia Ward Howe who wrote the lyrics to the Battle Hymn of the Republic who said, I want to end all wars forever and ever and ever. Anna and Ann Jarvis, mother and daughter, said, no, we're going to end war forever. It was in this same context, in this same time period, that you had these black people who properly buried the war dead. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Are you surprised by this information? You know, Attorney Aaron Connolly and Attorney Darrell Jones, I was in an Uber car Memorial Day, maybe 2-3 years ago. I was on my way over to one of my brothers. I think my brother Yusef was having a barbecue. Somebody has a barbecue on all of these holidays. And this young man was so excited because his daughter and niece shared a birthday. And he said, ma'am, your ride is going to enable me just to really get my daughter and niece, give them a wonderful birthday. And I was very, very touched by that, very touched by that. And so something told me to ask him, I said, did you know, and he was a young black man, I said, did you know that this holiday was started by black people? And he stopped Attorney Jones and Attorney Connolly. He was just stunned. He said, ma'am, are you serious? And I could see that it changed him. It made him a little taller. His chest stuck out just a little bit further because he saw himself and the honor of black people in this holiday. He said, are you serious? We started this? I said, yes, we did. And I explained the story to him. And so, you know what? Oh, Paul, you can call Dwight McKee now. He's calling me. So I want you all to think about that. I mean, what, Aaron Connolly, what does that say to you?
Well, this side of the story, as you said, Santita, is one of the ones that we like to gloss over, and it highlights a deep grief within our nation that has existed since its founding, whether it's in the 1600s when we are fleeing persecution to come here and steal land and persecute folks. We have a complicated history, and the Civil War was a culmination of the white supremacy, of the challenge between the idea of federalism and the idea of individuality, and who really suffered, as we see, whether we're talking about Mother's Day or Memorial Day, again, are the regular people of this country. And the mothers who had to heal others who were on the other side, potentially hurting their children, to this story. And I think what I felt in reading this account, and as you spoke about it now, Santita, so beautifully, was that deep grief and gratitude, right? When I hear this story and can see it before my eyes, I think it's such an honor to think of these folks having enough humanity and love for themselves, for their country, and respect for others that they said, this is what I would want, and this is how our our dead, no matter which side they're on, should be honored. And this is how we should lead as a nation. And I think we can take a lot from that part of the message today as we go into a Memorial Day where our nation is arguably more divided than ever. And say, what can we do in a little way, whether that's honoring a family member who I disagreed with, and whether that's praying for someone I disagree with, whether that is participating in a parade and getting to know my community a little bit better, or taking the next step in volunteering to support folks who are new to this country as refugees, whether that's from the Ukraine or whether that's from Guatemala. How can we come together to honor our past, to honor these sacrifices, and through every course of service, right? The men and women who served this country and died, whether they're for the United States or our allies, should be honored in some way. And I think it's important to recognize that what they did is very different from even what they represent. And that you may disagree with, but the sacrifice remains. The sacrifice stays the same, and those folks and families who do stand up and heed the call of service in that way, I think you're right, Santita. It's something that we should honor and respect, and also really contemplate what we can do to be better citizens moving forward.
You know, I mean, and really what we can do to be better citizens and better human beings, because at this, you know, what these people did was honor them. That no matter what they did, you know, because actually, you know, one of the last in-person conversation I had with my grandfather, and I've shared this with you all so many times, was the only time that he ever talked about his World War II experience, which was very painful, particularly when he came back and had to move back to the segregated cars. When they got into New York, and then when they got to Washington, the black soldiers had to go to the segregated cars and give their seats to Nazi POWs. Horrifying. And he said, you know, we were sent into Dachau and Buchenwald and in these camps because, number one, they were laden with explosives, with landmines. So they didn't want to get the white soldiers killed. They could expend us. But the other piece was, once we got in to rescue the Jews who had survived the war, if they saw black soldiers, they knew we were not Nazis. So we had to go. But I was honored to do it. Thank God I was able to survive, but so many of my friends did not. And, you know, there's a humanity that I'm seeing black people bring to this, and I'm seeing mothers bring to this, as this war discussion, as I wear my peace button today. And I think we've got to do that because, you know, we don't care about our troops today. They use payday loan centers more than the civilian population because they're not making enough money. 62% of our budget goes to the military, goes to militarism and wars. And a fourth of that goes to military contractors. They are not sharing that with our troops. Our troops are struggling. They're struggling. And it's shameful. So, Daryl Jones, talk to me about it.
Well, you know, first, good morning, Santita. And it's always great to be with you. And happy Memorial Day weekend to everybody. You know, Santita, when you're talking to Aaron and I was listening to the conversation with regards to what happened with you when you were in the Uber or the Lyft, having your ride with the driver, what a difference it makes to know you're celebrating a holiday begun by formerly enslaved black people. What a difference it makes. And you could, you know, from what you were saying, you could almost feel the enlightenment, the pride of the driver as you were sharing that history with him. I say that for this reason, Santita, because as we stand today or sit or whatever you're doing at this morning, you know, history untold can be decapitating. It can upend roots, can kill a tree. I say that saying, when we think about keeping your history out of books, hello, Florida, this is the impact that it has. This is the impact that it has. So it's so important that we raise issues like this, to let people know the history that if they don't know it with regards to Memorial Day and what its founding actually was. We could see, and as people do the research on it, you're going to see that there were all kinds of attempts to control the narrative of lifting up the history of Memorial Day and defining when it actually began and taking it away from those freed and formerly enslaved that started it in Charleston, South Carolina, and trying to shift it to other cities to make it something that wasn't started by African Americans. Santita, the one thing I love about what you do with the show and what happens here is that once the listeners are infused with this knowledge of the history and the truth of Memorial Day, now that they know, what are they going to do with it? That's the challenge. Their knowledge is now expanded. We've got to be certain we encourage people to post this information, use social media, talk about it, share it with other people that don't know. Because once we are able to lift up and certainly take control of the narrative, the story of how it really came about, then I think there's a whole different celebration that goes on at the cookout or the dinner or whatever it is, or however it is that the various families celebrate that Memorial Day holiday and the Memorial Day holiday in general. So I just think it's so incredibly important that people really sit back, go back, research it, learn about, the roses and everything that marched around the racetrack and, all the work that went in and the honor that went in to creating this memorial holiday from those formerly enslaved black people and free black people that were there at the time, Cynthia. So, that I think is extremely large. And then, as you've indicated, your peace button is right on point, because the more peace we have, the less necessity we'll have for the soldiers that have to put themselves in harm's way. Those that are 18 and very young, that then are really exposed and taken advantage of once they enlist into the military, their first real job for the majority of them, the most money they've ever made, and then for those payday lenders to come in and take advantage of their lack of financial knowledge to take advantage of them and their money.
Stay right there. It's the most money they've ever made because they're coming out of poverty. Dr. King decried this. Mm-hmm. It's the poverty draft. Well-to-do kids don't go into the military. They go to Annapolis. They go to West Point. Okay? They don't go. They're not enlistees. They're not grunts. And I think we need to acknowledge that, too. They go in. Poor people enlist. Wealthy people are commissioned. And they make a completely different salary. They are on a completely different track. Once they max out in the military, they go and they work for the military-industrial complex and become wealthy. That is not available to our veterans. They are struggling out here. They are homeless, black, white, brown, yellow, red. They are homeless. They are poor. They're poorer when they come out than they were when they came in. It's just shameful. And if we're going to really talk about Memorial Day, I think we've got to talk about that, Daryl.
You're absolutely on point. I mean, we've got to talk about it. Let me tell you, where I reside, I'm next to Fort Meade, a military base, one of the largest military bases on the coast. And I tell you, the number of businesses that are around the military base, not just the tattoo shops, but also the payday lenders that are there, the bars, the down bars that are there, just waiting to get a hold of these young folks and their money. And then, after they've served in the military, as you're saying, how do we honor their service? They put their life on the line. They come back home. If they were in battle, they have all kinds of psychological issues that they got to deal with, and they can't find housing because of certain issues. Catch this, Santita. I'm a voting rights guy. Catch this. Do you know that if they're diagnosed with certain psychological ailments, that they can have their voting rights taken from them? They can't vote because of their psychological issues? Is that right? They put your life on the line, and you come back and you're mentally challenged because of their experiences. As a result of that, You're disallowed the right to vote. That's incredible, Santita. That cannot be how we treat our veterans that have put their life on the line for this country.
No, but that's how we're treating them. I mean, and Aaron, I think we've got to talk about that. Talk about the real state of the veterans. Why is it that they use the payday loan centers more than everyone else, more than the civilian population by a significant number? They do that because they don't have any money. They're paid a pittance.
And there's not a system in place to help them navigate building wealth for their families, right? There's a kind of churn and burn mentality, right? Where, as you said, there's a lot of investment in the officer corps. There's a lot of investment in the elite portions that do things like translation and technology and repair our planes and tanks. But when it comes to the infantry, when it comes to the enlisted folks, I thank you for bringing the disparities up, because there is a disparity in pay. There is, a serious lack of support once they become veterans. As we look at our healthcare system continue to deteriorate in the United States in general, the VA system is much worse. And there's a lot of requirements associated with the VA system and red tape that make it almost impossible for veterans to get the care that they need under the current system. And we have amazing progressive representatives like Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Ramirez, trying to expand some of the access that these folks can get. They're closing VA clinics because they can't hire people because of the regulations, right? So veterans who are suffering this long, what I think is a long death, when they come back without mental health care support, without proper health care, and they're suffering and turning to things like drugs. For example, the clinic that closed that ignited this legislation to expand health care access was a methadone clinic. It was supporting folks that are addicted to heroin, that are part of the VA system. And it was devastating for the local community to have this clinic closed, and it was devastating for those who served us, who were getting good quality care. We abandoned our veterans after the parade in so many instances. And I'm a part of a military family, and full disclosure, my sister was a commissioned officer, and she went in after her time at university to serve. Many of the folks under her command did not have the benefit of receiving their education yet, and were planning to receive their education under a GI Bill after they had served our country.
But you know what?
At the start, there's discrepancies,
let
right?
me say
and
this.
You don't empower.
I'm not slamming commissioned officers. I mean, please, West Point and Annapolis reached out to me just on, grades and, on test scores, right?
Oh, I bet they did.
That's no. I'm saying that's what they do. And I get it. I'm not, and you get a recommendation from your senator and, and you compete and you try to get in. I get it. That having been said, we don't offer those opportunities to enlistees. And I think it's something
we do not.
We don't. We don't have the same regard for them. And many people should be shocked, and they should be appalled by the fact that these enlistees are treated this poorly. And we also, Aaron and Daryl, have to change, and we have to expand our sense of service. You can't just pick up a gun and say you're of service to the United States of America. That is a form of service. But if you don't think the garbage workers of service, let them go on strike. If you don't think the frontline workers are of service, let them go on strike. Let them get sick during COVID. They're the ones who got up and worked without PPE. What about the teachers? What about the butcher? People serve this country in all kinds of ways, but the only way that we give them a way to get educated and paid is not through the Peace Corps, it's through the War Corps. And increasingly, that is not working for us, Aaron and Daryl. It's not, particularly when it's a poverty draft, Aaron. I mean, if you're poor, that's your way out and that's your way up, right? My mother's from a military family. She said our way into the into the working middle class was my grandfather. Your grandfather was a veteran, and then he was able to work at the post office. And because he was a veteran, my mama was able to work at the VA. hospital. Whew, got them out of poverty. And that's a great thing. I just wish we had more opportunities to, more spaces. Aaron, the last minute belongs to you.
Yeah, and I hope that, the new generation that's taking shape in Congress and throughout the military can see this. I think there is hope for an increased humanity, but the class system that exists in our country is the same in the military. And what we need to see, thank you, Daryl, for bringing up the payday loans and the bars and all of these things that they put in these military towns. We're not empowering our military families and veterans, and we're giving them this lip service because it's easy to make us feel better, right, on days like Memorial Day. We have to dig in and really look at how are we supporting these families that are making these sacrifices. We have to expand their health care. We have to give them more options and more training and more support after they leave the structured system of the military, because so many people do thrive in that structure. And it does provide a sense of belonging, a sense of, and you get paid steadily. You get certain benefits. And when that goes away, it's devastating for folks coming out. So that's what I hope we can support as we think about Memorial Day moving forward is the soldiers are still in battle when they come home.
Absolutely.
It never ends for many.
Absolutely.
And we have to do a better job.
We have to do a better job, and we have to expand our sense of service. Because your teacher serves you. Everything you do, everything you're able to do, you got from your kindergarten and first grade teacher because they taught you to read. And I'm saying I think that we need to grow up in our politics and thank them for their service. I thank them for their service when I see them, my teacher and my teachers. I thank the people who work in the hospital because they keep the hospitals clean. Mr. Allen at John J. Pershing School kept the school spotless. We've got to expand. We've got to grow. We got to grow. You can't let the corporations, who we go to war for, let's be honest. You can't let them continue to shape this narrative. It's not right. Call me at 773-763-9278. We're going to get Dwight McKee on the phone. I have him on the phone right now. I don't know what happened this morning, but Dwight, we're going to get you back on. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Okay, I think, Dwight?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened, but can you hang up now? Don't answer. And let Paul call you now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. But there was a number that I gave you that you can also use to call in.
I did. It wouldn't go through.
It wouldn't go through?
6 times.
No worries. Okay. Paul, he's going to call. Yeah, call him now, please. Thanks.
Is the military-industrial complex picking him off the line?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm like, what is up today? I'm like, we've not had problems with him all week, and now we got a problem. What? So, but...
It's still going to voicemail.
It shouldn't be going... I just talked to him. Just try him again, please.
Did he block our number?
No, he has not. And he said he tried to call in half a dozen times, and he couldn't get through. We've had him on all week.
What number were they dialing out on this week to catch him?
I'm not in there. I don't know. I just... he's been a guest.
I'll keep trying, but it's going straight to voicemail.
No, I'm saying it should not... just try him right now, because I literally just called him. Because he went to voicemail a few times, but just try him if you could try him now. Because I literally had him on the phone just now. Okay. Okay, he said he can't get through.
Alderman Moore is on the line.
Okay, did we get Dwight McKee?
Nope.
Can you try him again? Because he just called
I'm going to
again.
attempt Attorney Fancher, and then I'll try Mr.
Well,
McKee.
let me call Mr. McKee and just ask him what's going on, because he's been calling me.
Automated voice message.
Attorney Fancher's on the line.
Okay, I'm going to voicemail. Let me just. Hi, Attorney Fancher. Fancher, how are you?
Good. I'm fine. Good. I'm doing well. Thank you. Good morning.
Good. You have got Alderman David Moore on. I'm going to bring you on, Alderman Moore.
All right. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's wonderful to hear your voice.
Always good to hear yours.
Okay, and we have got Attorney Darrell Jones, Attorney Aaron Connolly. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do more than one thing at once, and Attorney Mark Fancher. Hey, Dwight, don't call anybody. Just keep the line open because it keeps going to voicemail. No. Okay. Can you call in right? Can you try to call in now? Because I don't know what happened. Because we keep calling you. Your voice goes to voicemail, and I'm calling you, and if occasionally it's open. I'm saying don't be off the phone. Just keep the line open. Okay, just hang up, and let him try you again. Okay, can you try him now, Paul? Because I just spoke with him, as you can hear.
Yeah, I'll try him again.
Okay, thank you. Hey, everybody, I go to the Betty O Day Spa. She renamed it. Who knew? But I've been going there so long. But Betty, BETTYEO Day Spa in Hyde Park at 1424 East 53rd Street. And it's an unpaid endorsement. She does great work. And I think you should go there. If you want to know how to take care of your skin, she is the person to show you. She is the person to show you. She's the best. The best, the best, the best. So, Betty O Day Spa, and that number is 773-752-3600. I know it like the back of my hand. I've been going there since, oh my goodness, since I was a prepubescent. Of course, I didn't get, well, you know what? I guess, Aaron, this is when you're getting pimples too. And she was, and also she would custom blend foundation. Because, so when I started wearing makeup, I wouldn't wear, trying to find the right color is always hard. Particularly for women of color, because color's not right. And she would custom blend it, and for everyone. And it was she's just been wonderful. But when you see her, Aaron, talk about life goals. She can still wear a bikini, and she's in her 80s. She is fabulous looking. And she's a fabulous human being. She's the one who told me about Florence Scovel Shinn, everybody. Florence Scovel Shinn. She's just an incredible human being. So go there, everybody, when you are in Chicago. 773-752-3600.
Stand by. We're coming back in 10 seconds.
Okay, did we get him?
No.
Okay, I don't understand what's going on. I really don't.
Me neither.
But keep trying him, please. Don't stop. Thanks so much, because I need him
We
here.
can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Happy Memorial Day weekend. It's the Santita Jackson Show, Friday, May 26, 2023. Let's talk about Memorial Day. It was founded by black people, and it was founded in a time when white mothers were taking care of men on both sides. They said, no, I'm a mother. I don't care who gets hurt. I want to make sure that they're all right. I want to send them home to their mother. And out of this time in our history, came a call for Mother's Day for Peace. That is the origin of Mother's Day, too. Something that we don't discuss. We don't discuss women's contributions to our history enough. We don't discuss black contributions to our history enough. That's why so-called woke politics, wake up. Who wants to be asleep through life? You need to know who we are, why we are who we are. And if we don't tell that truth, then we will allow wars to go on into perpetuity. And that is not the goal. Any veteran will tell you, you want peace. It's only people who are far away from the fighting theater who cheer on war. People who are grunts, people who are on the ground, they don't want. That was what my grandfather told me before he died. He said, no, war is an awful thing. It's an awful thing to go back to the barracks or to go to sleep and turn and see your best buddy has been killed. That's a horrible thing. So, and we need to thank them for their service, but we need to expand our sense of what service is in this country and in the world. Because increasingly we're seeing that we are serving the military-industrial complex, and they are serving corporations, not the people, not democratic ideals. Not when 60% of the weapons that are sold to autocracies in the world are sold to autocracies, to dictators by us. Think about that, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's get some of these headlines from CNN out of the way. America's political leaders have less than a week to hammer out a debt compromise before the country could run out of money to pay its bills. Some Democrats are losing patience over what are seemingly deadlocked talks. Several members have warned the White House that their party's votes cannot be taken for granted, and their support for any debt deal is not necessarily guaranteed. The ongoing negotiations have already triggered negative economic repercussions. Credit ratings agency Fitch placed the top-ranked U.S. credit on a negative watch, and a 30-year mortgage rate, they have risen because of the looming uncertainty, everybody. And now, internationally, you've got China and Japan concerned. They control about a little more than half of our debt. They're wondering what's going to happen. What is happening, everybody? We will see over the weekend. June 1st is but days away. The White House has laid out two separate national plans to combat anti-Semitism and gender-based violence. President Joe Biden introduced a whole-of-society plan, the first of its kind, that tackles anti-Semitism. He called it the most ambitious and comprehensive U.S. government-led effort to fight anti-Semitism in American history. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster has signed a bill into law that will limit most abortions as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. And that's, interestingly enough, when most women find out that they are pregnant. Well, not most, many. Can be later than that. A growing list of Republican-led states, including almost all of the U.S. South, have introduced sweeping abortion restrictions in the wake of last year's Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 63 degrees. It will be sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 81 degrees. It will be sunny. In the NBA, the Celtics kept their hopes alive. They were down 3-0. Now, the series is at 2-3. They've won 2 games. And they've held the Heat back for 2 games. What do you think is going to happen over the next few days? The Celtics won 10 last night, the Heat 97. In the NHL, well, the Golden Knights, they are on the verge of getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, everybody. The Golden Knights, they'll drop the game last night to the Stars. The Stars, they're trying to hold on. The Stars 3, the Golden Knights 2. In the WNBA, the Mystics will be playing the Sky. The Mercury, well, they won over the Lynx, 90-81, and the Lynx will be playing the Aces this Sunday. In Major League Baseball, the Blue Jays will be playing the Twins, the Tigers 7, the White Sox 2, and Mets 10. Oh, and the and the Cubs won. Wow, everybody. You know, I've got one of my dear, dear friends on here. I have to introduce him that way. I can't do anything else. Although he is now a big-time alderman of the 17th Ward, the mighty, mighty 17th Ward here in Chicago, Illinois, Alderman David Ward. But, you know, I have to say, we're Shippites. We grew up in the same church. We've known each other a long time. And when I used to go out to the airport early in the morning, he'd almost meet me at the door and treat me to McDonald's. Love you, David. Excuse me, Alderman Moore.
Yep. No, you can always call me David.
No.
Go back to the part. And you know I am humble. I don't have an ego. I'm just a servant. Definitely not big time. God is big time, and because I hang with him, it makes me look big time.
Come on now. You sound like Mrs. Evans. Come on. She said the only big shot she knows is what? Jesus.
God.
Jesus was washing your feet. How about that?
That's right.
Oh, boy, we have the same stories, everybody. But you're going to be doing something really interesting this weekend. I mean, as we're talking about the first, you see, when you and I talked not too long ago, you said, no, I'd read. Were you surprised, before you tell us about your event this weekend, were you surprised when you found out that Memorial Day was founded by Black people who had been in slavery?
Absolutely. That was some man over, like, for me, maybe 15 to 20 years ago, that I read about that. And unfortunately, you know, these things are not taught in school, right? Mm-hmm. And you figure, how can you get through grade school, high school, do a degree under undergrad and a master's, and you find out about this really late in life, right? And it's true. And to learn about, you know, the newly free, at the time, the newly freed enslaved men and women and children. I believe it was in Charleston, South Carolina. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Just definitely, you know, not so far after the Civil War, these freed enslaved members of the U.S. colored troops and got together to bury the Union troops. And from my knowledge and what I read, it wasn't just the black ones. Although they started it, it was all the Union troops who died, especially during some horrendous conditions back then. Mm-hmm. I think, if I remember correctly, they were put in some prisons, and it was just terrible. I can't remember all the facts. I don't have the book in front of me. I'm just trying to go by memory of what I remember when I read. But it just shocked me, you know. But yet inspired me and made me say, wow, because what I had read, you know, you read several things, like it was Memorial Day was founded in, you know, was
May 1st, 1865. Just right, I mean, right after Lincoln had been killed. Right. I mean, just, there was so much that was going on, right, in that moment.
Right.
And then you had mothers pushing for peace. You know, so I think that you know, Alderman Moore, I think it's important for us. And then they were pushing for sanitary conditions because they said, wait, 2/3 of our soldiers died in that war because of infections. Because the hospitals, the makeshift hospitals were unclean. Because, because they couldn't keep the wounds clean. I mean, you just keep on going. They had to endure horrific conditions. But so it is in this context that you're going to do something pretty special here in Chicago on the South Side.
Absolutely. So before we sit down and eat our barbecue, and I'm so just you know, honored not only to be on your show, but for you to have this knowledge and to bring that piece in, because we wake up just thinking it's some holiday, we start barbecuing, but we have to remember this was established by us. And so
Mr. McKee is now on the line.
What we're going to do is celebrate our 8th annual. This is not our first time. This is our 8th annual Memorial Day, Southside Memorial Day Parade. That's coming up on Monday. And I got to be honest, Santita, it wasn't my idea. When I became alderman, I went to my veterans home. I sat with my veterans, just asking them what were some of the things, how I could help them and be a blessing. They said, you know what? First and foremost, we want a parade in our community. They said we do not feel a part of what goes on throughout the city of Chicago and downtown. many times we're never reached out to. We want to be appreciated in our community, sort of like what you're talking about with the history of the founding of this parade. So we line up, have people line up along Halsted Street between 76th and 79th Street, just down the street from the police station, which is on 78th Street. We start our parade off marching in front of our veterans home at 77th and Emerald, and we have Montfort Point involved. We have the Tuskegee Airmen involved, the Buffalo Soldiers on their horses. I mean, our children playing in bands, just celebrating our veterans. And that takes place, like I say, Monday. The ceremony and the wreath land ceremony is at 10 o'clock. We got a Veterans Garden on 77th and Emerald. So we want people to line up on Halsted between 76th and 79th Street. And so you can clap and honor our veterans. Bring your kids out before you start your barbecue.
Wow. You know what? We've got Attorney Mark Fancher and Dwight McKee. Of course, we all grew up in fellowship together.
Oh, big brother in the house.
Daddy D.
What's up, Dave?
And Attorney Aaron Connolly, and of course, Attorney Darrell Jones. Dwight, why don't you react to that? Because, so often black veterans are excluded. As he just said, he said, the people in my ward have said, look, you can acknowledge us because it seems that these bigger organizations don't acknowledge them. Dwight.
Well, I think it's a great work, and I appreciate what David is doing. In many ways, that we have a responsibility to honor ourselves and to exalt ourselves for what we do. Because much of the stuff we do, we end up doing it for each other, and it's not going to be what's so appreciated. I think we have to learn to separate veterans from wars like we separate firemen from fires. Is in many ways the veterans are called to put the fire out, though they didn't start the fire. And so the whole veterans responsible for the wars that are imposed upon them is really kind of unfair, because most of them never had the power to decide who they were fighting or why they were fighting or where they were fighting. They were just mostly by law back then having to force to fight somebody else's wars. And so not only did they fight the wars and make a contribution to putting out those fires, then they came back and was treated again like the N-word and was never compensated or decorated for the service that they provide. So I really want to commend David. I think it's a great thing, not just for the veterans, but for the community and the kids to see.
Again, what time is the event and how can we participate?
Absolutely. The ceremony starts the wreath land ceremony starts at 10 o'clock, and the parade kicks off at 11. And we just ask people to be lined up along Halsted between 76th Street and 79th Street. Or all the way up to 80th, really, between 76th and 80th Street in Halsted. If you get lined up around 10:30 or 10:45, and just, come out and just honor the veterans as they pass by, and just give them great recognition.
Alderman David Moore, the 17th Ward here in Chicago, tremendous servant. But we learned from the best, didn't we? Reverend Clay Evans, sending you so much love. And First Lady Luther May Evans, who told us that Jesus is the big shot, and since he washes feet, what are you doing? I said, okay, gotcha.
Talk about content. I miss them both so much. Don't give me the crying. I miss them both so much.
I miss them, but they left us so much, including each other.
They did.
So,
that's right.
Let's keep it going. And Pastor Sharp is doing a fine job at just such a brilliant job. And so we've been blessed. Pastor Jenkins did a fine job, brilliant job. We've been so blessed that we still have the ship in our lives. And so many of these churches, we're moving into the 100th anniversary season for New Covenant. And that's a blessing. We're looking Pastor Meeks moving over at the House of Hope and growing that church. So, yes.
Pastor David is somebody's preacher. He is somebody's preacher. Just doing a great job over there, along with Pastor Sharp. But yet we still have our leader, and he's still in his right mind, Reverend Jackson. So God has really been good to us. So we as the old saints sing, we can't complain.
We cannot complain. We cannot complain. But let me bring up Mark Fancher, Attorney Mark Fancher. I mean, many people do not know that Black people in an expression of humanity saw these soldiers who'd been put ignobly in mass graves, because you're not supposed to treat war dead that way. No one. That's the agreement, right? They dug them up and put them in individual graves, and they said, we're going to have a consecration because these are children of God. Their lives are sacred, and we want to honor them. And that story is not told, and and when people hear that story, it helps them. It helps Black people to feel better about themselves. And what do you think about it? I mean, what do you think about the fact? I mean, and at that time, you also had mothers who were pushing for peace. That's how we got Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day for peace. It's just, there's a lot that was going on in that period. But what about Memorial Day?
I think this is an important thing to focus on because it's further evidence of just how special the African ancestors were in this country. We really have to reflect on the fact that African people were enslaved. They were snatched from civilizations, prosperous societies, and even if they lived in small villages, villages that were loving and supporting, and they were taken by force through a horrific ordeal during the Middle Passage, where they were packed like sardines into ships. They had to wallow in blood, urine, and feces and sweat for months at a time until they were finally brought out and placed on an auction block to be sold, where young girls had their genitalia inspected to find out whether they would be in good investment because of their reproductive capacity and potential, where men were judged like they were horses. They were taken to plantations where they were humiliated, beaten, abused, tortured, and forced to endure the worst type of treatment that human beings could experience. And in the midst of all of that, you had slave masters who cut the Bible up into pieces and tried to teach them through selective scripture that this was their lot, that this was their destiny, that this is something that they should be pleased to endure. And somehow through all of that, these same people who were already close to God managed to practice a form of worship that was genuine, that had intact the values that God wants us to have. They were able to maintain their humanity. They were able to summon up their strength and their character to resist and to rebel. And then finally, when given the opportunity to go and fight the last battles that needed to be fought to abolish this evil institution from the face of the planet, they fought with valor and were responsible for the victory in the Civil War. And they emerged from all of that without bitterness, without hatred, with a passionate love for God and an appreciation for humanity. And they were moved to make this type of magnanimous gesture, this very humane gesture. And in the face of all of that, there were still people who stood up and called these people savages, called these people uncivilized, even as they continued after slavery had ended to lynch them, to torture them, and to abuse them. Who really were the savages? So I think we really have to appreciate this as evidence of just how magnificent these people were. And I think we also have to reflect on what responsibility that we have to them, that in their efforts to act like human beings in the wake of a tragic, violent conflict and their demonstration of their love for peace, that we have an obligation not to honor soldiers and those who were fallen in battle by simply going along with those who exploited and manipulated them into conflicts in the current era which are fought not for purposes of defense, which are fought not for purposes of maintaining the sovereign integrity of this country, but which are fought for purposes of advancing the interests of multinational corporations and big oil and others. How evil and how cynical that is. Our responsibility is to make sure that young people are not duped, exploited, manipulated, and maneuvered into situations where they waste their precious lives. That's the best way that we can pay tribute to those who have volunteered or in other ways find themselves in the military service.
And the poverty draft. I mean, we're finding that it is these enlistees who over-index in their use of payday loan centers and all of these outlier financial institutions that really rob them. And if you read the corporate media, Attorney Fancher and panel, it's because these are young people who are getting a paycheck, who don't know how to manage their money. I'm like, it's not quite that simple. First of all, they're getting small paychecks, a pittance. Okay? When you have 62% of our budget that goes to militarism and wars, a fourth of the Pentagon budget goes to military contractors. Somebody's getting rich, but not these kids, not their families. They are struggling. And if you love troops, don't throw veterans away. And if you love troops, you need to pay them. Somebody's getting paid, but they're not getting paid. And we just saw in 60 Minutes last weekend, thank you, Dwight, for calling me and saying, hey, you need to watch this. You know, wait a minute. They're not getting paid. They're not getting paid. Somebody's getting paid. The military contractors are making money hand over fist. No one is talking about raising in a substantial way the salaries of these young people. Nobody's talking about that. When they get out of here, they have to beg their way into a burdened VA system. The people in the VA work very hard. But it's not enough. So let's talk about this, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. Happy Memorial Day, July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. You need to be there. We will be talking about these issues and so many more in just a few minutes. Okay, everybody, keep on talking. You know we can. Ooh.
Santita, this is Erin. I have to jump off right now.
Why don't you say something to the audience before you go?
Pardon?
Say something to the audience before you go.
Oh, well, thank you all. Thank you to the panel today for the important discussion, and thank you to the Morning Stars. Have a blessed Memorial Day weekend, and we will, I guess, talk to you on Tuesday.
That's right. Tuesday or Wednesday. Either way. We will be back on the air next week. How about that, everybody? You all like my little peace button. Isn't it the cutest? Yes. Oh, I saw it yesterday. I said, oh, I need to wear that tomorrow. And then I've got, of course, my hope and peace bracelets on today. My mother gave me these. Hope and
Dr.
peace.
Arnold is on the line.
That's right. Dwight?
I was going to speak to the wage issue for 1 second. They really can't pay them a lot of money because they want to keep them broke enough to re-enlist and broke enough to be dependent upon that little situation that they have. Most of these kids, we had to deal with the draft, which was, really a very unfair situation. But they forced us to join, those of us who joined. But these kids join for the most part because they see it as a career opportunity, and they come from situations where they have very limited options, and they see it as a way out. And so they join because it's a guaranteed job, at least it's a guaranteed income, even though it's minimal. But the military understands that. It's like crack, give them just enough to get addicted and enough for them to keep coming back. They don't have really any real options once they join. They're stuck there for 4 to 8, 16 years. But they have to keep having them re-enlist. So they come back the next 4 years. And so they don't want them to be substantial enough to be able to leave and do something else. They want them just addicted and needful enough to have to come back and back and back and back and turn this into a career, even though not a real viable career. So, they're only going to pay these kids for so much money. Certainly not enough money to stabilize themselves.
That's a horrible thing. Dr. Damon Arnold, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
Well, as you can hear, we're talking about our veterans. Everyone, he is a veteran, of course, brilliant physician, and the former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health. And he's about to graduate from the university. Well, he's a Howardite. Let me just establish that. He's a bison.
Yeah, that's the first thing.
Come on. Boom. How about that piece? Yes. And Mark's son is a bison, so come on now. That's right. We got to give mad props. Howard University. You know. Come on now. HU?
Oh, yeah.
You know. Oh, my gosh. I was singing somewhere not too long ago, and somebody in the back of the church said, HU. And other people said, you know. I said, we're in church. Are you serious right now? I was so, Dwight, I didn't tell you that I was so embarrassed. I was like, I almost forgot myself. I was like, HU, you know.
Coming back in 15 seconds.
And then afterwards, they were like, we saw you, sis. I was like, I can't believe y'all did this in church, really. They said, everywhere we go, bless their hearts.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. We might be telling you something about Memorial Day that you did not know. It was founded by black people. That's right, black people who had been newly freed from slavery. They saw that soldiers had been buried in mass graves. Some of them dying from having been wounded. Many of the 2/3 of them died because of unsanitary health conditions. They had to endure horrifying filth that killed them. And so they said, no, we want to honor them. They are God's children. And so more than 3,000 black school children, more than 10,000, mostly in the supermajority, black Americans, got together and sang, all of our national hymns, and laid flowers at their graves and gave them a proper burial. And I think it's a story that we need to tell. When I tell young African Americans this now, black people, they're like, it makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel more included in this country. When we tell the story that in this same period, Julia Ward Howe, who wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic, she also pushed for Mother's Day for Peace in the same period. And this 4 or 5 year period, I mean, and they did this first Memorial Day was a couple of weeks after Lincoln had been killed. This was May 1st, 1865. So there's a lot going on here. But people were looking for peace. They were looking for a way out. Dwight McKee?
And the irony is, David, you need to understand this, is that most of those soldiers, many of those soldiers died in Camp Douglas, which was on 31st and Cottage Grove, which is why they have a cemetery over there. Now it's a remnant cemetery from this prisoner of war camp, which was Camp Douglas, which ultimately became Bronzeville.
Unbelievable. Dr. Damon Arnold, the former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health, we're very, very full. You just heard Dwight McKee speaking about that. Of course, you know Dwight McKee and Attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant civil libertarian and civil rights lawyer, and Attorney Darrell Jones, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, indeed one of the leading voting rights advocates in the country, if not the world today. We're talking about this. This is. I shared this very quickly, and I told a young black man who was an Uber driver a few years ago, just a few years ago. Let's say within the past 3-4 years. I was on my way to a Memorial Day cookout that, somebody in my family is going to be making something to eat. And when I told him that Memorial Day was started by black people, he stopped. He said, "Ma'am, are you for real?" He said, "Really?" He said, "We did that?" I mean, he was shocked that we had done something so magnanimous, so great. And that's why when you see people trying to shut down information in the name of being anti-woke, I'm like, when is it to your advantage to walk around in the world asleep? You can't see, you bump into things, you get killed, not having your history. What about Memorial Day? And, and the fact that this was a holiday that was started by black people who had been dehumanized, and they didn't want to see anyone else dehumanized. Dr. Damon Arnold.
Yeah, well, thank you, Santita. It was a day that was started, by, African Americans who, it was, shortly after the Civil War, back in 1868. But they had an organization of Union veterans, and they felt that it was immoral not to honor those people that had fallen during the Civil War that was being fought for other reasons. But we know there were other reasons than just free slaves. But it gave birth to a movement that had put us into the modern day era of where we are now. Although we still have the remnants of slavery within our society, we are not walking around in chains every day like our ancestors did. So we should be honoring those slaves, because some of those people who were in that war and were in the wars in this country were former slaves. And so it goes back to the Revolutionary War, where, Crispus Attucks was the first one on record who was noted to have died for the birth of this country, in its escape from colonial rule from England. So we really have to start thinking about this as a long history, and not just the day that we actually enacted this reef laying, but we had been involved in the birth of this nation from its inception. And so African Americans and all veterans are honored on this day, both men and women who have died for the country. And we have to make sure that we understand, people will say, well, Happy Veterans Day. It's really not a happy day. It's not supposed to be a happy day as much as it is a day of recognition and appreciation for those who laid their lives down for this country. I've been to 23 different countries. I was in the military for 26 years. Mm-hmm. And I've been to a country where I've had as much potential freedom as I do in this country. And what I'm saying about that is that most governments overseas are autocratic governments, and the people are in abject poverty if we go around the world. So I just recently took a trip to Ghana, and they told me, they said, African Americans, you're one of the richest black people in the world. And I said, what? And I started thinking about and how much we have. So I have a tendency to look on the half full side of the cup. Mm-hmm. And when I joined the military, I volunteered to join the military because I didn't like the way they were treating my grandfather, my father, my uncles. I had a cousin who died in Vietnam. So I have a history of people who were serving in the military in my family. I just didn't like the way they were being treated when I was over at the VA hospital back in, 1980, about 1985. So I take a different view of what the military really means in this country and what are some of the opportunities. But still, the big failure of how we are treating our African-American youth in this country before they even enter the military, the lack of education, the lack of opportunity, the things that we don't do to reach out to the youth every day who are suffering and trying to figure out what is this thing we're supposed to be doing. So there are many great opportunities in the military. When I was there, I actually had doctors, nurses, x-ray techs that I pushed, and I told them, the first day that they joined my unit, I said, what school are you going to? And many of them said, well, I don't know. I don't have a school. No. I said, you know what? I said, you're going to have a school tomorrow. Here's a book. You pick something you're going to do. Because I said, it's a selfish request on my part because I don't want to be standing someone who's so stupid that they don't take advantage of an opportunity to have a career and to have a free education. And you're standing next to me on the front line. I said, if you have nothing to live for, I don't want to be standing next to you. And they will always laugh, Mm-hmm. So even though I'm going off track a little bit, that's the history behind why it's so important to look at our Tuskegee Airmen who were massively oppressed before they left and when they came back. But they were fighting for something they had as an ideal. They had a belief in a country that we are living in now. We can always wallow and say, that they're going to destroy us. We have to stand up. Our youth have to learn and understand that there is another way to live before we die. And those people who've died and given their life, we can never dishonor them. We should actually have a Memorial Day for all the slaves who died in this country, who built this country.
Say that.
And so that's my...
No, say that. I mean, because we hear, we're a nation of immigrants. In part, that is true. And that immigrants built this country. In part, that is true. But the infrastructure and the meat, the tendons, the bones, the flesh of this country was built. It was built by unpaid labor on land that no one bought. So, excluding indigenous people and black people from this conversation, immigrants came to a country that was very prosperous, that enslaved people had built, that enslaved unpaid labor, not free labor, unpaid labor had built. So you were able to leave a monarchy and come to something else that was happening across the pond.
That's right. And we talked about this.
Yeah, and I think we have to be honest about it.
That's right. We have to. And we have the calling card of colonialists is to steal, right?
Mm-hmm.
They steal your freedom, your ideas, your life, your dignity, your possessions, steal everything, your freedom, truth from you. So we have to be on guard about people who are stealers in our society and make sure that we are living a different type of life, that we are constructive. We build pyramids. We build, vast civilization. We contributed to science. And those things are being, and we have to make sure that we develop our own identity. And one of the ways is to show and respect those people who laid their lives down for this country that we built.
I think, was it you, Daryl, were you saying, was someone saying something? Daryl? Who was it?
No, that was me. Alderman Moore. Yeah, and and I'm glad he brings that point up, and we'll bring it back to the Memorial Day parade, but we'll talk about, in terms of when we talk about people coming here from other countries, they've come in because it was a promise of hope for something that was established, like you said, by black people who built this country on free labor. And
unpaid.
A lot of this...
Unpaid. Alderman Moore, we have to say unpaid.
Unpaid, because it wasn't free. It was, because you're right, if they paid... They didn't get any money for it. They were not paid, and that's why reparations is so important. Why other people are asking for other things for their community. That's why reparations is still important. But a lot of this stuff came about by wars. America entering into wars, and our young men and dying in these wars. And now up until this point, even our young women were doing the Iraq War or whatever, and that's why it's important that we celebrate them and we remember them, and that they get that recognition. And like I said, it took a veteran to tell me, even when we have our parades downtown, which get highlighted a lot, they don't feel a part of that. And it was their voice that said, we need a parade in our community, a Southside Memorial Day parade. And this is our 8th year. We're starting that up. And if you want to show that appreciation because you're able to barbecue because someone died, you're able to shoot fireworks and celebrate because someone died and paid the price. So come on out and line yourselves along Halter Street between 76th and 80th so that you can pay your respect to these soldiers in honor before you eat your barbecue on Monday at 10 a.m. Come on out, celebrate us. We having a wreath laying ceremony at 10 o'clock. At 77th and Emerald in front of the Veterans Home. We're lining the wreath in the Veterans Garden where we honor our veterans, and then the parade kicks off at 11. And so be out there lined up so when they come around at 11 o'clock on Halsted between 76th and 80th, you're out there celebrating the veterans in our community. Thank you so much.
No, look, what time does it begin?
The parade kicks off at 11. The wreath laying ceremony at 7, and recognition of our veterans starts at 10 o'clock in front of the Veterans Home on 77th and Emerald. If you want to come out for the wreath laying ceremony and for the whole ceremony, where we're going to have Colonel Damon T. Arnold as our guest speaker, and we're going to honor some of our veterans, and then we're going to lay the wreath, and then the parade kicks off at 11. So come on out and help us honor and remember our veterans who died in war.
Well, Dr. Arnold, this does go to, and I want everyone in the panel to weigh in on this. You know, I'm going to let you sum it up, but let me pivot to you just in a minute or so. Attorney Jones, you heard me talk about the Uber driver whose chest burst with pride when he found out we started Memorial Day. And you hear these veterans even today who say, I feel excluded. When they have the parade downtown, they're not talking about me. I mean, what does that say to you? We still have a lot of work to do for sure, but what does that say to you, Attorney Darrell Jones?
You know, what it says to me is that we have got to be, we that hold the knowledge, we that have had the opportunity to learn the significance of Memorial Day, the beginning of Memorial Day, and how it came about, we have a responsibility to be certain that we pass on to the next generation, to everyone that we come in contact with, what we've learned and what we know, because it's going to be that generation that has the ability to pass it on. You know, one of the famous things that we learn about oral history, you've got to tell your oral history. You got to tell your history, because if you don't tell the history, somebody else is going to tell it in a form and fashion and narrate it in a way that is not consistent with what happened and may not reflect what is accurate. So it's so important that we lift up and just inform everyone around us about the history of Memorial Day and how it came about. Because as that Uber driver learned the significance of the beginning of Memorial Day, as you said, he burst with pride. But he wouldn't have had that pride if someone didn't share it with him. So it's so important that we post it on our social media, we put it out on our email blast. We just tell anybody we come across. If they know it, that's fine. If they don't know it, enlighten them. But we've got to tell our history, because as we're learning and as we know, we're going down to the state of Florida. We have a rolling protest that we're going to be doing over a Juneteenth holiday, because we believe that the fight for freedom is real and is still existing. And the whole concept is we've got to be certain that our folks know that the importance of Memorial Day, the importance of knowing our history, that banned books cuts that history from being taught in schools and to our children. It's important that we get it all out there. And so for that reason, Santita, I say that one of the biggest things we need to do is be certain that our history is included in whatever teaching we come across in any manner that we come across.
Attorney Mark Fancher.
Yeah, I think we just need to recommit to ending imperialist war. It's obscene, it's vulgar, it's evil. It is something that is intolerable, particularly in light of the fact that so many well-meaning, well-intentioned young people have lost their lives in these wars which have been fought for purposes of making large corporations wealthier. It's something that can't be tolerated, and I think that we have to recognize that we have the capacity to stop it. It's an unknown, if at least little-known story, that it's black people who stopped the Iraq War. After it was invaded, there was a very quiet movement in communities throughout this country by people who were leaders in these communities, whether they were pastors, whether they were teachers, whether they were in other ways leading their communities, discouraging black young people from enlisting in the military because they didn't want them to fight in an immoral war. And the military establishment itself did a study to determine just what the enlistment rates were, and they reached the conclusion that the enlistment rate in the black community had plummeted. And it followed logically that they were not going to be able to sustain a military effort without people voluntarily joining the U.S. military. And my favorite anecdote from that period was from a young man who I heard interviewed on the radio who said that he had mentioned to his mother that he was thinking about enlisting in the military, and her response was, if you want to enlist so that you can get killed, you don't have to go to the trouble. If you enlist, I'll kill you. And I think that's an indicative of the commitment that we can have to ending and stopping these wars. They can't fight wars without people who have been manipulated and deceived into doing it. And I think to help young people, what we need to do is to create other options for them, other opportunities for them with respect to career, with respect to vocation. There is many of the people who enlist because they're seeking a way to get their lives off the ground. They're seeking education, training, opportunities for jobs. Those can be provided other ways. And if we want to operate within the political realm as a matter of policy, we can continue to push the idea that there are other ways to provide national service. My father was a Depression-era child, and he talks about how during the New Deal programs, when they introduced the Civilian Conservation Corps and other things, that there were many young people in his neighborhood who really were going nowhere, who had no futures. But when they enlisted in this program where they were set to work, participating in development projects and, engineering projects and construction, reconstruction of infrastructure and that type of thing, that when they returned from their service, their backs were straighter, their eyes were clearer, and they went on to lead productive lives as family men. We need to bring that back, not necessarily in that form, but we need to provide alternative methods for young people to have opportunities other than to be sent off to kill people for purposes of enriching multinational corporations.
Dr. Damon Arnold, I've got 3 minutes left here, and they belong to you. Dwight I want to get some closing statements from everybody on the other side of the break. When I think of you, I do see a physician. I see someone in the military. I see someone who, whenever I call, whenever anyone calls you about anything, a health issue, whatever it is, you're willing, you drop everything because you want to give people information. To me, what I see in your life, the current that I see is service. Just as a child of God, you want to serve people. You want to make them well. You want to keep people safe. What say you on Memorial Day? I'm so glad that you're going to be leading this Memorial Day service on the South Side for Alderman David Moore. He couldn't have found a finer human being to speak words. What do you want us to know? Because many people on the chat line are saying that they never knew. Even in 2023, they didn't know that Black people started Memorial Day. Dr. Arnold.
Well, I've always, I'll be a speaker there, but the true leader is Alderman David Moore. He pulled it together. He has people who are alive to honor the fallen soldiers and, service members, men and women. He's going to have the Buffalo Soldiers there, the American Legion, Triple Nickel, Mountain Point, Tuskegee Airmen. And, I think it's really important to recognize that these people, actually served. I mean, the military is not for everybody. And people who are joining the military, there's an evolution. To stick our heads in the sand and say that we haven't had wars since the beginning of time, since the caves and clubs were developed, is irrational. We've had wars over and over and over again. We are trying to evolve to an idealistic point of view where we have a free and open society where everything is fine. Now, say, defund the police, take the police down, get rid of all the police, would be similar to say get rid of the military. It doesn't make any sense in the society we're living in now. If we were living in a society where everyone say, I'm going to be peaceful for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be an autocrat. I'm not going to be a Putin. I'm not going to be Xi Jinping. I'm not going to be Trump, great. I would love to live in that kind of, altruistic world, but we don't. And as we are looking at those people who still serve in these roles, whether it's in the federal government, FBI, CIA, all those. Yes, are there things that have gone wrong with those organizations and those agencies? Yes. But in general, they are keeping you so that you can wake up every morning and not worry about being dominated by Skynet that's being implemented in China right now, where everyone's DNA is being collected and it's being connected into their video surveillance systems. They don't have like we do.
I got 20 seconds.
So I just wanted to say that we are at a time period where we are recognizing these people who have passed away. They are to be memorialized. We should be thanking them for their service and make sure that as we're going into the future, we give the same honor to other fallen that may come on the road. And hopefully we will get to a world that's completely peaceful, and I hope that day comes.
And I hope that we all work toward it, because ultimately that is what Julia Ward Howe and Anna Jarvis and these enslaved people were moving toward. They said, we don't want any more war. We don't. And until we do, we want people to be acknowledged for what they're trying to do. But let us expand what service means, everybody. Your teacher serves you. If you didn't have your first grade teacher, your second grade teacher, your kindergarten teacher, you wouldn't be able to read. The garbage workers, they serve you. If they go on strike, if you don't believe they serve you, let them do that. So think about that, everybody. The frontline workers who went to work at the height of the pandemic without PPE, they serve you. Your janitor in your building serves you. We serve each other, and we make the society more peaceful, and we make it more just. That is our opportunity. That is our charge. I love you, everybody. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Please go to @Santita J so you can get some of the stories that I posted, Santita Jackson and Friends. And of course, I love you, everybody. God bless you. I love my whole panel. Thank you, Paul, for a great show. God bless you, everybody. Happy Memorial Day. Have a blessed Memorial Day. And hug a veteran today. And let's give some love to the enlistees. How about that? As well as the officers. Sending you much love, everybody. God bless.
Thank you, Santita.
Oh, no, thank you very much. Because, Dr. Arnold, before you go, I know you're running. I was just, we treat enlistees and officers very differently, because some are on the college track, or some barely might have gotten out of high school, or just got out of high school. They're looking for a way out of poverty. And we've got to have that discussion too, because we just have to. I think if we're going to have a just society, we've got to talk about all of these issues. Dr. Arnold.
Oh, yes, definitely. And, the military is changing dramatically, because everything, the average age of the person going to war in Vietnam was about 17. Now the average age is in the 20s, late 20s. And the reason is that the technology that's required to operate many of the mechanisms that we have, the tools of war, unfortunately, that we have, the technologies behind us, so you can actually get a very high-level technical background degree, which we aren't pushing in our regular schools, in elementary school, high school, college. There's no real STEM push in our African-American inner-city schools, elementary or high school, and that is what the future is. We have artificial intelligence coming out. And if we get to the point where the mechanization is taking away labor jobs, and we are not involved in the technical aspects of the STEM, and now we call it STEAM, we are going to in trouble as a group of the society. So I really encourage people, if they decided they wanted to go the military track, because we did a lot of peacekeeping too. I did a lot of med-readies, which people don't talk about, like 23 different countries, where we actually built wells, brought water in, medical supplies, and did things, to give people some insights into how to take care of themselves. Work with multiple organizations overseas about borders, that kind of thing. So I just think that people have to really take a moment to reflect and understand what military service really is, how it's evolving, how it's changing, but also what some of the opportunities are that are there. The opportunities that we are offering our youth right now in our communities is to become a carjacker, right? So where's that opportunity? Is that a death sentence too? When we talk about death sentences in the military, I feel much safer in the military than I do on the streets here.
And that's in a civilian society, that is a sad thing.
That is, yeah.
I mean, it's sad, but the director of national intelligence, Dennis Blair, about 15 years ago, said that the economic inequality was going to drive social unrest and it was going to become very unsafe for us. He said that then. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely true. And this is something
I could say.
Oh,
yeah, the economic instability domestically and the war and the conflict overseas, the culprits for causing all of it are the same people. And that's what I think we need to be clear-eyed about, that the same multinational corporations that have created economic chaos in this country are the same ones that go overseas and create conflict that otherwise would not exist. The intelligence agencies create chaos and mischief and create conflict. And then what they do is they take well-meaning people in the military and they direct them into those conflicts and use their bodies, use their lives so that they can become richer. That's fundamentally obscene. And I think we really need to understand that and to mobilize our communities and begin to think of ways to go after those who have abused and exploited so many well-meaning people and have cost our communities so many lives needlessly. And if we don't understand that, then I think that we really are destined to continue down a road where our communities deteriorate even further, people descend further into desperation and the need to commit crimes. And for those who are not inclined to go down that road, who are looking for honorable ways to live their lives, defaulting to the military very often because no other opportunities are available, and then once they're there, being manipulated, exploited, and directed into conflicts that they didn't cause and that they really shouldn't be paying the price for with their lives.
Yeah, and I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say the same thing. My last statement is that I think the challenge is to celebrate our veterans without glorifying war. That's the challenge, to celebrate our veterans without glorifying war. And at the same time that we celebrate our veterans, we need to acknowledge the kids across the seas that they end up killing. Because in many ways, both of them, our veterans and the people they kill, are pawns in the same game, whose self-interest does not serve either one of them but themselves.
Yeah, I think it's much more complex than that too. It's very simple to say, should we have gone to war in World War II, right? Those were multinational corporations. This country made a lot of money on the war machine during World War II. And we had people jumping into cheap labor jobs. We have women entering the workforce for the first time in a significant way. And, that is part of the history of what we have been. So when you buy your latte at Starbucks, who do you think you're supporting? So, to criticize people in the military for supporting an industrial complex that's for multinational corporations, you do it every day. Your tires for your car, your gasoline for your car to get to go downtown to eat a hamburger. I mean,
I just want to be clear. I'm not criticizing people in the military. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm not criticizing people in the military at all. I'm sympathizing with them for being manipulated into situations that are not of their making, and I feel for them.
But what I'm saying is that we are all being manipulated into participating in things. I'm a green movement person now, and we are all manipulated into doing things. Do I still use my car and put gas in it? Yeah, I'm manipulated into a position that is not consistent with what I want to see the world as. So I don't think it's just people in the military. I think it's in general the whole society. We're all manipulated into things that I think are really supporting this superstructure that is unethical and immoral. But the question is, how do we move from here into the future? And are there mechanisms within these things we are involved in, what we've been drawn into, to get to this place?
Well, I think first we need to acknowledge, where we're being failed, and we have to do that. I think we have to honor our veterans, and while being open to criticizing the missions that they're put on, because many of them they don't know. They don't even understand their missions. And when you are fighting for someone else to have the right to vote, when I don't have my right to vote guaranteed in the United States, it's not right. When you have payday loan centers on the edges of these bases all over the country, because these kids can't get from payday to Monday, and then the corporate media will say, oh, it's because this is the first time they've had a paycheck. I'm like, no, these folks are starving. Many of them are sending money home. They don't have enough money. If you go to Annapolis, if you go to West Point, if you're a Howardite, if you're a physician, really, if you're part of the intellectual elite, you're on a different track in the military. But if you're a grunt, you're on a different track in the military. And I think that, and we have to stop. If you're going to give a fourth of the military money, the Pentagon money, to the contractors who are raping us, 60 Minutes showed you a portion of that last Sunday. And you're not even talking about raising the salaries of these enlistees in a substantial way. They can't afford not to live on base. They've got to live on the base. Right. And even then, they need payday loan centers. There's something about that that's real off, while these people are charging us tens of thousands of dollars for objects that are a couple of $100s to manufacture. Something is real off. Because even our military is being raped, if you will. They are. This is awful.
And so our clerks at the Walgreens who are, in their 60s, who retired in the 70s, right? And they have to scrape by to, So I think it's a societal problem. I think it's throughout society that we treat people this way. And, even within the military, even if you come in as a grunt, if you come in with the right viewpoint about your education, getting a free university education, you have to be on the right track and thinking the right way. That's why I said the military is not for everyone. I would not recommend it for everybody. But those people who have at least an insight about where they want to go, how to get there, there is a track you can get into, the multiple tracks you can get onto, and develop a career-based system. And part of it is is recognizing, having some situation where it's having someone who's going to back you up and talk to you. So I talk to people all the time, and there are people I've told don't go to the military, and there's some people I said, yeah, you need to go. And they have become, helicopter pilots and, so they're in the aviation industry, people who became doctors. I've had nurses, x-ray techs. I said, if you're going to go, you have to have a plan. Otherwise, you're being stupid. You're putting your life on the line.
But they're not being told that. They need to be told that this is a pathway to this. And we also need to have a correlative career in the Peace Corps, in a peace movement. Because different people are built differently, right? And so, you need to have a peace correlative to the war correlative. And I think we've got to, and we have to respect all the tracks. And don't blame, yes, I'm sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, but Mark was saying.
Hold on. Let Mark finish, and then you, Dwight. Mark.
Yeah, I agree with the point that it's a society-wide problem, that workers across the board find themselves in similar predicaments. But the distinction, as I see it, is that when those who go into the military are different from the Walmart employee who's in his 60s, in that Walmart doesn't create the potential for them to be sent overseas to give their lives away, for the sake of major corporations, or for them to kill other people. And that's what's so evil about the way that the military is abused, manipulated, and exploited. And that is the big crime that I see, that it has such a fatal mission. It has a mission with such consequences that it elevates it in some ways, with respect to its significance relative to the way the rest of us find ourselves supporting these major corporations, and why I think it's so important for us to devote special attention to dealing with it.
Dr. Arnold?
Yeah, I agree with you about that.
And what I was going to say.
Hold on, let Dr. Arnold finish, and then you, Dwight. Dr. Arnold?
I agree with you about the direct killing, but, as a person who's in Walmart, right, I'm a physician, so I know that most of the things that kill people in our society every day are by what we put through our mouth. So they're selling their products, multinational corporation products in our communities, soda pop, right? Things that add to the cancer burden, things that are clogging your arteries, giving people heart attacks, unhealthy foods. So they are actually supporting an industry that is killing people every day, more people than ever died in war. So every year, more people die from heart attacks and from eating unhealthy foods that are being pushed by multinational corporations that know the consequences of you eating this stuff, and they're being sold by people in Walmart who are helping you to check out, or directing you to what to get, to what to buy. So we sit in a much deeper situation, I think, when it comes to what we are allowing ourselves to be experiencing, what we are allowing our society to become. And we are the ones who are actually lining up for the next next videotape on mass killing, right? The next game that comes out. We're the ones who are lining up and are allowing these corporations to manipulate us, our minds and our bodies.
Dwight?
And if I can make my little point, is that, and I think that we need to address both. I think if we need to declare war, that's who we need to declare war on. We're shooting people in Vietnam who has nothing to do with that. And the people who are killing us every day, we walk past them to on our way to Fort Meade to go shoot somebody who is not putting us at risk, walking right past Walmart down in Tennessee. No, not Tennessee. Arkansas.
Pick a state.
Walking right past them, and they are raining death
state
on the planet. So I think both needs to be addressed. And I also was saying, I think you hit it right on the head, Dr. Arnold, that all of these opportunities to be doctors and nurses and medics is opened up by the military. But there's a whole class of people in this country that do all of that without having to go to war. Everything you name, they have opportunity to do without putting their lives on the line. And so we need to expand enough opportunities so that even the poor have the option to become somebody without killing somebody or themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, altruistic world. I would love to see that when we get there, but we have people who don't see things exactly that same way, and I hope we do get to the point where we are seeing things the way you're talking about. That we stop these wars. I am not a person that is a war hawk. I actually did more peacekeeping than I actually did anything else. Actually protected some of the combatants from other countries who were coming in for medical care, and then, our veterans who were being shot and those kinds of things and blown up by RPGs. It was a little bit different from most wars. You also had people who were killing their own people who were over there. That probably they had more people killed by their own people than by us when I was there. So if the world is not a nice place, in many of the places I've gone to, very dangerous places. We have people here in the South that are killing each other. We need to do something, and to stop this carnage, this genocide that we're part of.
Well, we have
and
a culture
part of that
of death,
genocide,
right? I mean, we don't have a culture that affirms life. We don't. We say we don't want abortion, but we abort people once they're born. You close their schools. You don't feed them. You don't take care of their mothers in prenatal care. I mean, it's just, we're going to have. Dr. King told us that we need to redo our values. That's the hardest thing to do. It's easier to change a law, right? But to change your thinking. What did Einstein say after he really gave us the keys to the atomic bomb? He said, that's our tragedy. He said, because as of today, everything has changed but man's thinking. The fact that you're willing to drop the bomb. Come on now. I mean, so I'm saying that, I think we've grown enough to honor our veterans, to honor the sacrifice that they made, even if they got in there and said, oh, wow, this is not the mission I thought I was on. That's what Pat Tillman found out before he was killed mysteriously, before he came back here to become a peace activist. They killed him in front of his brother. Good Lord. As his brother was driving up, they were shooting him to death. Friendly fire. Okay. So, I mean, we have to grow up. We have to grow up in our politics and grow up in how we relate to each other and say, okay, I'm not slamming the veterans at all. I wouldn't do that. What I want to do, though, is deal with the fact that we need to have a peace option. We need to move toward a just society and a peaceful world. That was the theme of the Jackson campaigns of 80, 84, and 88. Now, how do we get to a just society? Oh, of course you do. How do we get to a just society? How do we get to a peaceful world? Well, I mean, you go into the military and you decide to be a peacekeeper. And then you get over to these countries and you say, wow, they have some really intransigent issues. Why are we here? Because we can't resolve this. This is something they got to work out. I think that we have got to, we have to make a decision, because the military contractors, they are the biggest, I'm sorry, they're the rapists. They're horrible. They're horrible. I mean, how can you just go in here and do what you're doing and you get a fourth of the money and we're going to war to keep you in business? That's shameful. Dr. Arnold, they need to be called out.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me why I joined the military, because I'm a physician and that kind of thing. Part of it was, what I saw, how people were being treated who were in the military when he came back. Mm-hmm. You had Vietnam veterans at the airports and all kinds of stuff, right? So I joined the military, and the thing I would tell them in part two is that, there was a thing, one of the things in the Bible where Jesus, went into this, it would be like kind of a modern day bar or restaurant, right? And he went and sat down at the table with the tax collectors. And when the apostles came in, they looked at him and they were aghast, and they looked at him and they sat in a separate section and looked at him and said, "What are you doing sitting over there with the tax collectors?" Right? And his reply to them was, I came here for them. So he's sitting with the people who actually are involved in what would be, unethical, unholy activities in his viewpoint, looking at, our world. And so, to walk away and say, I'm not going to get engaged in things, I'm not going to do anything, doesn't help anything at all. I have to be sitting at the table to talk to people and see if their viewpoints can be changed at all. And I was able to do that a couple of times in Iraq, actually in Mosul, with our leadership, to tell them to look at things a different way, and averted some stuff that was going on there. So I feel that we have to be engaged. This is the real world part of, right? And and I'm really glad that you have attorneys on too, because when you start looking at, it would be easy to say, well, why would I get involved with these, with law, right? But you have a moral, ethical code that goes beyond some of the attorneys who are supporting multinational corporations, who are fighting and bringing them into law, lobbying for them, pushing their issues, making sure that they stay whole and in existence while they do all these things. But I'm glad that there are attorneys who are out there who are saying, no, you can't do this. So we always have this oppositional force on two different sides that are going to see things kind of differently, but we have to stay engaged with it and figure and make sure that things move in a positive direction.
And get involved in conversations so you and Mark can talk. Because you will find that as you and Attorney Fancher talk, you all are not that far apart.
Yep. Yeah, I really agree with them.
Oh, yeah. I see you push every Saturday. I mean, I get it. You sit up here fighting for peace, too. Mark?
Yeah, exactly.
Is Mark still there? I don't know. Okay. Attorney Jones? Well, Dwight McKee?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. That's sweet.
Just a fascinating conversation listening to Doc and Mark and everyone talk. One of the things that I always try to keep in mind when we're talking about our military is that, we're talking about, 40% are African American, and those that are enlisted or go in and that are African American, we've integrated the military 75, 80 years ago. So so they don't make up. We're still not making up any of the upper echelon of the military, and we're certainly the part of that. Military that is being preyed upon. That's 40%. So when we're talking about the military folks that are being preyed upon because of the finances, preyed upon because of all these other things that the guys so well laid out, we're talking about approximately 40% of the African Americans that are in that military. So it's a large percentage of young African Americans that are being exposed to this, and it's just horrendous. And it's just something I think that we need to really keep in mind as we discuss this military conversation.
It's Mark? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Whoever's going to jump in.
Yeah. I agree with you that there are still inequities that are existing there, but I see the same inequities while I'm going through school and the opportunities that African Americans have. I mean, I had to sleep on a park bench a few times, and when I was going to Howard, because I didn't have the resources I needed to, to go through school and pay for tuition and all that. I was painting rooms the day before I graduated to pay off the bill so I could walk on graduate, right? So there are always hard times that we are going to go through. We are always behind 8 ball. You know, one of my friends is he always says his father used to tell him it's a long climb to the bottom of the hill, right?
Oh yeah.
Because we are we are beyond.
Oh yeah.
Beyond the bottom of the.
Oh no! Look, my parents.
And all I want to say is, and all I want to say is that we are declaring war on the wrong people. We should be declaring war on the rayons and the Rowans and the ones that are ripping us off.
Yeah.
That's who we should be declaring war.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I was really upset when I was in Iraq, right? So I did a couple of tours in Iraq. I was with mechanized infantry and then with the Black Hawk helicopter units that were flying all over the place. But when I was there, you know, one point they said, "Oh, Halliburton's setting up his head in Dubai," and I was like, "Halliburton? They're the ones making some of our armor. They're making our supplies." I said, "So you're going to put them in the middle of an area where you think that you have hostile enemies, you know?" And so it is a farce and to a great degree with these multinational corporations that prey upon people all around the world globally. And they are just nothing more than just an empire, you know, a modern day empire where you have someone who is a king, we call them CEOs now, who is, you know, overseeing this whole this whole complex of things. And you're absolutely right. And the thing is that we do need to have some corporate entities, but they need to be more responsible. They need to be more ethical, more moral, and we need to move away from products that are killing us on the shelves of every grocery store market that we go to. You know, you have things like Whole Food and you know, they say Whole Paycheck, of course, but Whole Foods and they're moving in the right direction, healthier foods and reorganizing the way we're thinking. And even Jewel moved their fresh fruits and vegetables in the front of the stores in some of the locations, which I think was a real positive move. But we have to be the ones that fight them and tell them this is what we want. Consumers, we want to have a certain level of you know, comfort. We have to really fight for those things. And I totally agree with you that the greatest things that we have to consider and fight against are these multinational corporations that control artificial intelligence, that control cloud computing, that control quantum computing as it rolls out. They're going to control fusion reactors. They're going to control the basic things that keep us alive, right? And distribution of food, the distribution. So unless we, you know, really get into that game, I wish that we had some kind of, you know, organization that would go and really, you know, push and lobby as hard as some of those multinational corporations are doing on the federal level. They're paying for people. I mean, we have, you know, the person who is, you know, Clarence Thomas, for example, you know, $500,000 vacation trips, right? So where's the ethics? And say, a poor, broken downtown, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, but in many ways, they also control war. You talk about the same Halliburton, whose CEO was Vice President Cheney, who was making policies on having the war, who benefited most from the war. So it's one and the same. The same people that are controlling the corporations are controlling the war. It's a conflict of interest. And he ought to be in jail. I mean, these guys ought to be arrested. That's who we need to be declaring war on.
I think you're right. I think, you know, I think that we're fighting each other instead of fighting the power. You know, because our warriors could very easily be peacekeepers, as you sought to be. They could do that. We could also have a robust Peace Corps, where we send people into countries to teach. And you know, I mean, Cuba exports doctors, like other people import tourists. If you get sick anywhere in the world, Cuba has a batch of doctors that they can send to you who can make you well. That's what they do. America's got to choose this day whom ye will serve. Because there's some other Dr. Arnolds out there. There's some nurses out there. There are some people out there who want to make people well. There's some lawyers who want to fight in defense of people. There's some lawyers who want to be civil rights lawyers. They should be able to go into the Army or the Peace Corps and get training for that. These kids come into the Army not knowing that they can go to college because they're not being told as they're being recruited. They are being recruited out of their desperation. They not only want respect, they want a paycheck. And this is their only option. And that is not right. And that is not your fault. But when you look at Raytheon, when you look at Boeing, when you talk about a welfare state, and all I can see on corporate media are stories about the welfare queen and these welfare kings and queens from Raytheon, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin and whatnot. Oh, no, who are overcharging our government, stealing from the American public, and they don't get called on the carpet. Shame on them and shame on us for not being energetic enough to deal with this and not being courageous enough to call them out on it. Because when people call out the military-industrial complex, they either get their money cut off or they don't live. I've lived through that. And it's shameful.
That's right.
Dr. King was told that he had signed his death warrant when he came out against the Vietnam War because he had just led the largest anti-Vietnam march in the world. More than 1 million people were in Central Park. My father said that they were going through the airport with Dr. King. And they saw some black and white soldiers, and they saw Dr. King, one of the most recognizable figures in the world, and they were a little like, don't know how to receive him. And they walked up to him and they said, according to Dad and to other people who were there at the time, why don't you like us? He said, oh, son, Dr. King missed his plane because he wanted to explain to them, I'm not against you, just as Dwight said. I'm not against you. I'm against what's being done to you. You kids can't even go to school together in the United States, but they're going to put you in a hole to die together on somebody else's war. That's not right. I want you to be able to enjoy the peace that we fought for a generation before with World War II. And we lost Vietnam, Dr. Arnold. We have not won any war since World War II. We didn't win Korea. Yeah. We have an armistice agreement, not a peace treaty. It's like, stop. Yeah. We need this money here. Every American child ought to have an up-to-date computer. The internet should be a public utility. We should have hospitals opening all over the country, not closing. Women are having to drive hours to go have a baby. We've got the highest maternal mortality rate for black and white and brown and yellow and red women in the so-called industrialized world. We're on the wrong track. Dr. King said that if we stayed on this track, we would be approaching spiritual death, and that is where we are.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I agree totally with everything they're saying, and it's up to the people to change the course of where we are. But we are complicit. We keep buying all the stuff. We keep watching the big screen TVs. We keep, we are consumers. We are addicted. We are addicted to the sugar, to the fats, to the TVs, to the, to the hairdos, to the clothing and the suits, and we are addicted
to being numbed out. And now they're telling us to smoke marijuana recreationally, so you can just be numbed out. You're not supposed to feel anything. Look, whatever you do in your personal life, Dr. Arnold, is your business. But they're not promoting health. They don't want you to smoke marijuana because it's going to make you better. No, they want you to be numb. Because numb people, people who are not sober, don't change things. Think about that. Why don't you tell your child that?
I blocked marijuana when I was the director for public health for 4 years because they were trying to get me to pass. I said no. And I said, first of all, how many of you who are right now in office have stock in it? That's one question. The second one is, why you're pushing for it so hard. The second is that you haven't even addressed the laws. So if an African American goes to work and a white guy goes to work and they both are smoking marijuana, what law is going to protect the person from their corporate head who says, you know what, I need to get rid of one of you, so you go, African American, and I'll slap you on the back of your hand if you're white, right?
Oh.
So the laws had not been worked out, have not even been addressed up to this day about what happens really. And they're trying to expunge records from people. I was watching, when that thing passed, I was watching CNN, and as well as watching different channels too. But I looked at what the, it was one thing where they were showing this thing on the news, right? It was like channel 775 or 2. And I was looking at the news, and they showed this thing with African Americans being arrested, with a drug raid, right? And they were saying, well, we recovered all this marijuana, and, we got this marijuana from people, right? And they showed another segment, and then they went to the segment with, a young white lady and young white male walking into a court system in Colorado and saying, you will change the law. We are going to sell marijuana no matter what you say. So when you see that dichotomy, they were considered entrepreneurs, whereas people in the community were considered.
They're dealers. They're dealers. I'm like, what's this? You go out to Colorado or Oregon, you become a millionaire. In Chicago, you go to jail.
Right.
Prison.
You go to
prison.
That's right.
You don't go to jail, you go to prison.
And then now you have to have a license to do it, right? So the only legal remedy they had was to put a license in, so that now you have to have a dispensary. But if you are streets, then you're still a criminal, right? So it's all by design, and that corporate entity, people are making millions for that stuff.
Well, I want to get some closing thoughts from everyone, because Dr. Arnold, you're going to have to come back and talk about eating healthy and getting not just changing the food deserts, really eliminating those, but what do we need to have in our community? You can get a Happy Meal. You can bundle up some junk. Yes, I said that, and I do like McDonald's, but I do know that I don't eat there often at all. I know I need fruit and veggies. I mean, and I need a balanced diet. And it should not cost me an arm and a leg. Whole food should not be a whole paycheck. And it sure is. But I want to get some closing thoughts. I don't know if Mark Fancher is still there. He might be. Or is Alderman David Moore still there? Okay. Well, then let me go to you, Dwight McKee.
Well, all I want to do is say thank you, Dr. Arnold, for your service. I know your heart. I know your legacy. I know your work. Your works, as the Bible says. And you, in many ways, have courage that I would never have to put your life on the line and going over the countries with pure motives, a motive really to serve. And you brought that same spirit back here to the community. And you've always been a great role model for us, and a guy I've always respected and admired. You may not know who I am, but I certainly know who you are.
I certainly know who you are, and everything back at you've done so many incredible things. The work you've done in the community and with Push, and I hold you in very, very high regard, extremely high regard. And that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of person that our youth need to see, not carjacking 104. One of these video games. We need to have those people who are 99.9999% of people in our community are hardworking, upstanding, and law-abiding citizens who care about their children and the future and everything that's going on. You always have bad people in every society, any group, right? But I think the vast, vast, vast majority of us care about things, and those kids need to see that is what's important. Not people, on the video games or on all these MTV kind of things, that are on TV. People acting absolutely despicable towards each other, and these different, shows about family. They're like minstrel shows, modern day minstrel shows. Mm-hmm.
They are.
People are sitting there with the housewives and all the other kind of crazy. For them to participate in that, to show that kind of side of them is despicable. But that's so. I'm glad that you are there. I'm glad Santita has a show that is telling the truth and getting out there and getting people to think. Like you were saying, Santita, about Albert Einstein. A lot of people don't know his history, what he really did, but he was very supportive of the African American community, and he was he was at Princeton University. He never taught an undergraduate graduate student, but in his free time, he went to elementary schools on Witherspoon Street that were African American, and the media asked him, "Why are you wasting your time with these children?" Right? And he said, "You just don't know the absolute the skills, the abilities, the talents, and the absolute genius I see within these children. And you are, you just." They said one of the greatest immoralities in this country, is the way that these children are being treated. And he, wrote a letter for W.E.B. Du Bois not to be in prison. He was very good friends with Paul Robeson, had dinner with him on a regular basis, in Princeton. But he did so many things. You should read some of his writings about war and about hatred that he put out. He was a civil rights leader. And most of the people, I actually gave a talk to the CDC. They asked me to give a talk one time, and I asked them about that, what they knew about him. They came up with E=MC Square, Manhattan Project, but none of them knew about his civil history. And I said, so if you don't know about that, then how are you treating your coworkers and your employees and who you interviewed to position here? And so that's something.
And Dr. Arnold, that may explain his afro.
Oh, yeah, sir. He went to jazz club. Loved jazz.
Well, you remember Einstein accepted an honorary degree, crazy, from Lincoln, and had a seminar with Lincoln University students. I mean,
that's right.
Because there's some. I was remembering there were photographs of him with these black students, and that was something that they did not do at the time. And so some people come out of. Because there are a lot of criticisms that people have of Israel, and I get it, and many of them legitimate. Mm-hmm. That having been said, you have a lot of people who come out of that same experience. Max Wolf's family comes out of the Holocaust experience, and they say, "Wait a minute." They say no to injustice. Because what you abuse people abuse unless they evolve, they abuse other people. That's what happens. We all do it. That's why we all have to be there. That's why white people are afraid of black folks. They're afraid. There was a little boy up in Iowa when my father was campaigning. I think it was at the end of '87, beginning of '88, and he went to speak to these kids in this little kindergarten, and they ran up to him and they hugged him and kissed him, and this boy was in the corner shaking. And as a father, my father he's just very gently approached this boy. "Son, are you okay?" And this boy was shaking. He was so afraid of Daddy. And he said, my mama and Daddy told me that if you become president, you're going to put us in slavery too. Heartbreaking. Because you know what? What my great-grandmother said, as long as what happens to you doesn't happen in you, that is the negative things, you're okay. But most of us repeat the cycle. Mm-hmm. We don't even rinse, we just repeat. Yeah. And and Einstein walked out of that experience saying, no more to this. No. That's why after the atom bomb, he said, "Ugh." Everything's changed but our thinking. We can use this energy for so many great things, but we're using them to destroy. And we have to acknowledge that. Acknowledge what we do that is so destructive. And acknowledge who we are, who we're not, and who we ought to be. How about that? So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I was telling you about that thing yesterday about the when you called us about the show. I was in a course, and one of the things we were talking about artificial intelligence and all that. People were saying, "Oh, it's dangerous." They should, we're careful about the release and all that. I said, "Well, it was Albert Einstein and Fermi, and it was 3 other physicists who sent a letter to the president of the United Congress and said, don't drop the bomb because we don't know how, how hot it's going to be, whether it's going to ignite the gas layer on the Earth. It could actually destroy civilization." And they went ahead and dropped it anyway. And I said they did the same thing with AI. But the bomb for AI has already been dropped. It depends on what the impact is going to be. We'd have to stand by and see what's going to happen.
Absolutely. But you know what? I have a quick question for Dwight. Susan has been posting this question several times, Dwight. And of course, if Daryl's still there and Dr. Arnold, you can speak to this. But specifically, she said, okay, Lockheed, Raytheon, Boeing, what are we to do? How do we fight the military-industrial complex and get this right? Speak to Susan from Los Angeles.
Well, first, like in all crimes, there has to be consequences to your behavior. And so I think they should have hearings, congressional hearings, on the overpricing of products put to the American people, and those who are responsible for that should be prosecuted. And if found guilty, they should go to jail, like other criminals go to jail. We can't have a two-tiered system where you go into Walgreens and steal a loaf of bread. You go to jail 2 years, but you sit behind the desk of the Raytheon and take the same loaf of bread and mark it up from $2 a loaf to $200 a loaf. And there'd be no consequences for that. Who's the greater criminal? And so you have to start with being real about what you're looking at and locking in consequences for illegal behavior. They have a system now where, Dr. Arnold, you know better than anybody, where they have the government over a ledge. And so if you don't pay their price, they will refuse to send armaments to the war where the troops are in desperate need of them.
Unbelievable.
Until they get their, that's right. And so if you extort your neighbor, you go to jail. Well, if you extort the government, you ought to go to jail too. One set of rules for the rich and the poor.
But, I was talking to someone who was very prominent here in Illinois. She's passed on. Her son was in Iraq. She was leaving Push on her way to pick up some a Kevlar vest for her son. I'm like, wait, you have to send that to him? She said, can you believe this? I'm like, come on, y'all. What is this? And Dwight, when I saw that in that 60 Minutes report, Dr. Damon Arnold, wait a minute, that they would withhold life-saving equipment from our troops, extorting us if we didn't give them more money. What?
Well, the thing that really disgusted me was the armchair quarterbacking. Right? Oh, yeah. I was looking at one of the things that happened was that you had these people who were actually up-armoring their vehicles, right? And they were putting, more protection around the vehicle, grates and that kind of thing. And then they were being prosecuted, saying, you can't do that. It's against the rules for you to up-armor your vehicle. It's like, what?
Oh, yeah.
I'm being shot at. Can't duck behind a tree.
It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's not crazy. It's wrong. It's corrupt. Let me let crazy be crazy. Crazy belongs in a padded cell when you need to be hugging yourself. This is corruption, and we need to call it what it is.
But what the attorney was saying, McKeever, I look at this, and this is really one of the key things, because I look at the ACLU and I look at different groups that are out there, and always when attorneys are forming a unison against these corporations, they are looked upon as being demons or outcasts or radicals, and they're always being in the media looked upon as being this radical group, because the media is controlled by those corporations and is controlled by a lot of those things that are out there. So I just wish we had a better view of what the attorneys who are really fighting for the right side of history. We need to be supporting them and looking at them in a much more positive light for what they're doing for humanity.
Mm. Does anyone, Daryl, are you still there? I think our people might have gone. Does anyone else have anything else they would like to add? Is there anything that's been left unsaid here today?
Well, I want to thank you, Sandy, for inviting your crowd you had today, particularly Dr. Arnold, who I say we admire greatly because he's been so consistent. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say we have to separate the veterans from celebrating veterans from glorifying war. Because a lot of these veterans have gone in with the purest intentions and really with a spirit of service and a spirit to help. And because they were in unjust wars, don't mean that they were unjust. They were really trying to do the right thing. And many of them, like Dr. Arnold, not just came back to work with the community itself, but really was committed to rehabilitating a lot of the veterans who lost themselves in this war or who was forfeited by the military because now they were of no use and no value to them for shooting somebody. And so I want to again applaud you, Sandy, for inviting Dr. Arnold and for who he is and who he has been. He's greatly admired.
Greatly, every time I see him, he's trying to help somebody. Just looking to help somebody. And I thank God for you. Just for the things that you've done for my father when he found out he had Parkinson's. He came up with a plan. Did my father follow it? No. But he came up with a plan, and he's been patient with him. He's like, well, you have to understand, this is how he's made, this is what's made him great, Santita. You just have to understand him. And then he goes home and he paints because he's got to do that because my father will drive you crazy. I love him. Oh, my gosh. But everyone, those are the kinds of things that he has done. He and Floretta Pulley just sat down and said, okay, this is how we want to save your voice, Reverend. This is how we want to keep you walking, Reverend, because we need you, Reverend. And but it's not just Reverend. If anybody walks up to Dr. Damon Arnold and asks him for some help, medical help, advice, he's going to give it because he just loves people and he serves people. And I want to thank you for being who you are. I want to thank you. And God continue to bless you and lift you up. And hurry up and have that get together so we can see your paintings. Hello, he's a brilliant painter, Dwight. And I want to thank you, Dwight, for staying in the struggle for so long. I mean, and just seeking to teach. He's taught me so much. And just really, I thank you both for being of service. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I say one other thing, Santita? The one other thing I want to say is that a lot of veterans haven't been traditionally getting the services they require. Recognition for battle injuries, those kinds of things that were African Americans actually were looked upon by VA examiners as being less than truthful with them or whatever their reasoning was, but didn't record things correctly. So it's changing now. People are taking it much more seriously in the VA system, that they are listening to what actually happened to people and their experiences. But what I want to say is that I want people to, and this is Memorial Day for those people who have passed who are service members, but what I want to stress is that every day veterans are out there. Some of them are living on the street. Some of them are in VA facilities, hospitals. Don't let them just lay there by themselves. They're a wealth of information. Take your kids by and let them talk to them about their experiences. That's a great place for them to learn something about who these people are, how honorable they are, and what they know. Also, employ veterans, because many of them have built skills while they were in the military, and don't let them go to waste. So employers who are out there, but honor them now before they pass away, because one day you go from being honored as a veteran on Veterans Day to being asked veteran on Memorial Day. So in between those, make sure that you're taking care and helping veterans who are out there. They need your help. They need your support. And they were in service, no matter what your feelings are about war or the utility of it, or whether it's right or wrong. They serve the country in your name, because were it not for them, you would be there yourself. So make sure that you honor them and take care of them every day.
Amen. Amen.
I just want to say, I just want to say that I'm humbled and honored to be on the same show with you today, Dr. Arnold. Godspeed.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both, because you all, this has been, I was exhausted yesterday, but then I called Dr. Arnold late. He's accustomed to I'm getting late phone calls from me. Oh gosh, bless his heart. You are sweet. And I said, I just need you.
I'm late and early owl, bro.
I know, but I appreciate you just, from the time I started the show, you just, anything that I needed, you've always provided, whether it was advice or if you were just going to be on air. And I thank you for that. I thank you for that. While he's wearing his 5 or 6 masks when he's around you, he ain't playing with his COVID.
Yep. When I graduated, I'll be wearing some of my Howard memorabilia too as I walk down the USC.
He's a graduate summa cum laude, University of Chicago now, as of June 3rd. Everybody. But first, he's from the capstone of black education. Boom. Howard University. HU, Boom.
Go Bison.
Go Bison. That's right.
I just want to say the reason they said that in Church Santita is because for the Howard crowd, both of them are religious experiences.
Hey! Particularly if you lived in one of the crazy dormitories. Lord have mercy.
Oh,
Jesus. Oh man, I lived in Meridian on 16th. Loved it.
Oh, Meridian. Oh.
My mother walked in there and she said my mother wouldn't even stand next to the walls on the elevator because they were all graffitied out. She was like, I can't believe this work, And my mother's like, you gotta take things and understand. My mother was like, no, you come and stay with me at the hotel tonight. I loved my dormitory. She said, she said, I've been away from this for a long time. And she was almost packing my bag. Come over to the hotel with me. I was like, I loved my dorm. My friend Kevin Grievous, he and I pledged at the same time. We'd bang on the walls with each other. Got any food? You all right? We had a ball.
What do you play?
Delta. 42A83. Come on now, Howard. Yes. Oh, come on. Even though my room was pink and green, they were like, what is up? And I wore pink and green all the time, and I wore pink lipstick online. because red was too harsh. It was too mature. My mother wouldn't allow me to wear black until I was 25. And you didn't wear red lipstick. That was just too forward. So I wore pink. And she said, you keep on wearing pink. Thank you. I didn't send you there to look like you have loose morals. Yes, my mother did say that, you guys. Yes. You know, I didn't raise that. I didn't raise that. I didn't raise you to be that. You're like, okay, that's right, Mom. You're right. Oh, loose morals. Yep, that's my mom. You have a good reputation. You're not a person of ill repute. Thank you. All those conversations are coming back to me now. They're nightmares, but there you go. But look, you guys, I love you. And Yvonne, yes, I'm rocking the peace sign. And the black piece is just decoration. But yeah, I thought about that today. And then the hope and peace bracelets that my mother gave me, the Lord gave it to me. I was wearing black and white today and a little bit of red. And ultimately, I want peace. And, and both of my grandfathers served in the Second World War. And my mother said, it occurred to me that the military enabled my stepfather and my mother to move out of poverty. And for that, she's grateful. That having been said, I hear you. And then she was a peace activist. Ultimately, I think you want a just society and a peaceful world. That's the point. As Dr. Arnold said, it would be nice if we did not have these other issues to worry about, but we do. And my mother even arrived at that conclusion. She said, no, we have a lot of enemies, a lot of places now. Hold on. So we need a good defense. But your defense should not be creating offense everywhere. And that's the problem that I have. And that's where my critique comes in. You shouldn't go in breaking up people's countries. You should not go in overturning governments. And that is what we routinely do. And you got to stop.
Yeah.
If you believe in self-determination for Americans, which we don't, then you should believe in self-determination for other people, which we don't. Stop. The oligarchs, what did you say now? The monarchs are now called CEOs. That was smooth, Dr. Arnold. That was good. It's true. The monarchs have been replaced by oligarchs. And here we are.
Yes.
Here we are.
Yeah.
It's just got to stop.
And then, part of the question too, what do you feel about the whole thing with us being overseas now, defending Ukraine? Do you think that's just or unjust?
Well, we provoked it. The thing is, when you united East and West Germany, the deal we cut with Russia was that we were not going to go eastward. And we immediately went eastward, and now we've surrounded Russia. We would not allow missiles 90 miles away from us in Cuba. He said, no. It's akin to us being surrounded on the north and the south. Imagine if we had hostile relations with Canada and Mexico. If they had a correlative to NATO, that was all over us. After the agreement had been made for NATO not to be there. No, you don't do that. You have to believe, the thing is, do I believe in invading countries? No, but do I believe in provoking? And which is what we've done. And now we're on the verge of nuclear war. That could happen. And you also have Putin saying with President Xi, we're gonna break up this neo-colonialism, which I'm with. I'm like, yeah, break it up, because this is wrong. It's wrong.
The first thing that these Europeans did when they came over and stole these people's country is they created what they call the Monroe Doctrine. And what the Monroe Doctrine said is that we will control anybody who comes over here from now on. No Europeans from now on can come over here and deal with these other people unless they come through us. Not only are we going to run this country we stole, USA, but all the way down to the tip of South America we're going to control. And no other Europeans can come and exploit except they check with us first. And so it's so inconsistent for a country who was set up by the President Monroe, the Monroe Doctrine, set that system up and used the CIA to control that system all of these years and keep creating these banana republics from that doctrine so that they could maintain control of all of those smaller states and countries and poor countries in South America and steal their fruit and their bananas. It's so inconsistent for then us to go across the water and say we're going to set up NATO, surround Russia with nuclear weapons, and hope they better not say anything. That we're going to set this up, and they're going to like it. And Russia being right from 200 yards from China. The border is between Russia and China is a river. And think that they're not going to come together and raise a stink about that. It's just inconsistent and really
hubris. It's excessive pride and arrogance.
Profoundly arrogant.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you don't do that. And I want to know because the president's son is involved in business over there, and these other people are involved in business over there. I'm like, what is going on in Ukraine? Because y'all are making a lot of money over there. Enough. Stop. Just stop. Study war no more. Yeah. Just stop it. You do best what you study the most. We study war a lot, so we do that well. Stop. To ask Donald Trump, whose side are you on? Who do you want to win, Ukraine or the United States? That's the wrong question. The question that needs to be raised is, are we going to have peace? How are we going to get peace? He said, I don't want anyone to die. I agreed with him on that. I don't have to agree with him on anything else. I agree with him on that. I want the war to end. You have Americans over there, and Americans are dying. They're mercenaries, but I don't care if they're mercenaries or not. They're dying. For what? So you make a quick $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. That's stop. Just stop it. Stop it. Stop. Macron of France says, I want to negotiate a peace. We can Erdogan of Turkey says we can negotiate a peace. America stops him from negotiating the peace. What? So the armaments industry in the United States, which is what we do, so they can make more money? No. And you all talk about nuclear war like it's nothing. Nobody will win if there's a nuclear conflict. Eventually, those clouds are going to settle everywhere, and they're going to kill a lot of the world. Enough. No, I'm pulling for peace, Dr. Arnold. Yeah. And don't provoke people. Don't violate someone's what Russia's border looked like 30 years ago and what it looks like today, completely different. Except for Ukraine, they're completely surrounded by NATO. And then they have China on the other side. I'd be best friends with China too. Why not? First of all, it's their right. And since so many Russians are ethnically Chinese, that makes a lot of sense. When you get to Russia, you will be surprised.
Right.
They're a nation of color. And many of them are also Indian. Because that's the kind of territory that they cover. Just enough, y'all. Stop. I mean, Dr. Arnold, I'm just saying stop. Enough. Stop. Enough. Just stop. That's all I'm saying. Just stop. We don't need to do this anymore. We just study war no more. I ain't going to just study war no more. Stop. So Ukraine, I'm pulling for peace. I'm pulling for peace, and I'm tired of the lies that have been told. The most horrible person in the world is Putin. Okay, and we move that around. Putin has grown. Even what we said about Brittany Griner, I wanted her to come home. She was unjustly imprisoned. No, she broke a law, and that's what happens when you break a law in anybody's country. Now, mercifully, we had to appeal to have her released. But you ain't going to break somebody's law and then say it's an unjust imprisonment. Paul Whelan has 3-4 passports. Who are you, man? You ain't telling us that. I'm trying to get my own passport right now. I can barely get that one. How you got 3, 4? Who are you?
Yeah, that's why I was, I was, said about the exchange because,
the person that they released,
yeah,
in exchange for her was that Nicolas Cage, that movie, The Lord of War.
Yeah,
that's the guy who was an arms dealer, killing kids in Africa and everything else, selling weapons all around the world.
But this is what we do. And you know what he said when he got home in a big interview? He said, you don't have to, he said, tragically, America has lost its moral compass. And you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about Americans changing anything because they are on too many drugs to do anything. They're not sober. He said that in an interview in Russia as soon as he got home. Oh, when they legalized marijuana here, they said, oh, you can smoke it anywhere you want except LaSalle Street, where the money is.
Yeah.
So you stop playing games with me. Just stop it. You know you're not going to go take that MCAT high. You're not going to take the LSAT high. You are not going to go through your classes high either. Mr. Summa Cum Laude, University of Chicago, but Howard first. Come on. No, they just need to stop it. They're pushing this on. They're pushing this on some people, but they're not pushing it on other people. So I guess you know how I feel about this. I'm with peace all day long. I'm always going to be with peace, and I mean a just peace, not quiet peace. I'm always going to be with that.
Yeah. Agree. I totally agree. Because I just, I can't stand to see people suffer. Why do we live? We live only a certain amount of time on this earth, and to be living, see people suffer. You have got to be sick, morally sick.
That's right. It's just my thing is it's just not right. So we're going to have to make some decisions about who we are. Well, I think you need to, number one, ask God, what do you want me to do? Who am I supposed to be? And, let's just get godly. I mean, that's all I'm saying. I mean, it's not godly to kill somebody else. And it's not, and I don't mean just physically kill them, kill their dreams, kill their hopes, kill their ambitions. That's what we do. Stop. You don't believe in abortion? Okay, personally, I'm opposed to it, but I think you have the right to do whatever it is that you want to do, and I will fight for you to have it. That having been said, we abort children once they get here. You abort their dreams. You abort their aspirations. You abort that for their parents. Stop. You're a hypocrite. And these same people who are fighting for me to have a baby by any means necessary, they remind me of the white slave masters. I had to have your baby, then your wife beat me up. Come on. You know that happened. Come on. Come on. They just need to stop. That's all I'm saying. They need to stop. Because that is documented. These white wives were mad as hell with these black women whose husbands, lusted after them or really liked them, whatever it was. I mean, just enough. We have all of that history, and you know what, Dr. Arnold and Dwight, we need to talk about it all. Because it gives context to what we're dealing with today.
Think about it, Santita. You got a 50-year-old plantation wife and a 20-year-old African girl. Who is he going to be looking at? Who is he going to be lusting after? Mm-hmm. Think about it.
Or if they were the same age. He might have had an arranged marriage, and he might really like this other woman. I mean, these black women suffered. And Rosa Parks became famous in Alabama because she would investigate the unprosecuted rapes of black women as late as the 40s. She said, every time I look in my face, I see the violation. So now I'm going to work to break this up. Oh, she said that? When I see me, my father's mother essentially said the same thing. She didn't want to talk about Roots. You couldn't even talk about it. She would refuse to watch it. She said, do you know why we look as we do? She said, do you think I want to be reminded of that? Now, mind you, she was raised in part by her white grandfather. She went and lived with them for a spell up in Greensboro, North Carolina. But the violation, the history of violation is so deep. Good grief. Enough, y'all, enough already. Enough. Yeah, so just get out of their business. Let them, because they could have had peace a long time ago in Ukraine. They could have had that. Even President Lula da Silva, out of Brazil, said, Zelensky, you never should have let it go this far. You should have negotiated a peace and gone on about your business instead of becoming a vassal state of the United States. Because essentially that's what they're doing. And Ukraine has a history of floating with the wind anyway. Enough. And we can't afford it. We're on the verge of default. And they get money. They just get, Zelensky almost bullies the president. I need more money. Like, what kind of relationship y'all got here? This is not his money. It's my money. How you taking my money? I look at him. I'm like, oh, you've got to be joking me. You can just call the president and say, I want more money. Who are you? What's going on here? Yeah, I said it. You got to help me. I don't understand this relationship, because Americans can't get $1,200 from the government without being called, all kinds of names. You don't want to work. Oh, come on. No. Nope. And that is why I'm in independent media and not corporate media. But that's all right. I'm good. Oh boy. But it's okay. I'm not going to cheer injustice. I'm just not going to do it. Mm-hmm. No. I'm not going to do that.
I really respect you for that. That's and you're an icon yourself.
No, I'm not. I'll give that to my parents. Yeah. I'm just a hard-working woman who had some wonderful teachers. Dwight is among them. You are among them. And I've seen you all in your spaces stand for justice, whatever the cost. And you inspire me, and I thank God for you every single day.
Thank you.
So with that, I bid you gentlemen leave. I love you. And thank you so much for being with us today. So many, and my audience, they're still here. Hey, bless your heart. You're still here. Y'all are still here because they wanted to hear what are the jewels you all were going to be dropping. And I hope that answered your question, Susan Garner from L.A., because Susan was not going to let it go. She had like 5 or 6 bubbles, Dwight. She was like, Dwight. Oh, Dwight. I said, wait, let me get this right. Dwight. Dr. Arnold, you got a lot of love here today too. So thank you. Oh yeah. So I love you all, everybody. Have a great day. I'll see you Tuesday or Wednesday. I love you. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. Yes.
And happy birthday, Dr. Arnold.
Oh yeah. I'm so happy to be with you. You are. And other guests, but you are champions. So I just wish you get some peace this weekend. Enjoy life. The sun is finally here. The warmth is finally here. And make sure that you get some rest too. You need to join your struggle.
I'm going to get some sleep.
Spoken like Dr. Arnold.
That's right. He's always going to give you some health advice. How many proteins did you eat today? What kind of proteins did you eat? Ooh, got to watch these animal proteins. I love this man. You've got to get rest, Santita. Oh, are you going to go to sleep now? I hope so. Because you don't get enough rest. Oh. And that's true. But I'm going to get some rest this weekend, I think. So, everybody, Betty O's is the name of the salon that I was telling you about. Betty O. 1424 East 53rd Street. The number is 773-752-3600. Skin. She does. And she's a registered nurse, which is what's wonderful. So medically, she can understand what you're dealing with as well. That's one of the things that I love about what you brought. Yeah, Mrs. Odom. She still has that wonderful business in Hyde Park.
Oh, yeah. And the massage there, I've been there a couple of times.
Oh, it's great. It's a day spa, y'all. You would love it. You would love it. And she looks great. She's her best advertisement, quite frankly. You know, because, you know, she's deep in her 80s now, Dr. Arnold.
Yeah, yeah. I spoke to her many times. I walked through Hyde Park and spoke to her in front of her establishment. Had some good conversation. A wonderful, wonderful person.
Wonderful human being. Wonderful human being. When my parents became public, my mother was about 23, 24. I mean, like, that's when Dr. King was killed. My mother had been 24 2 weeks. And so she was like thrust into public life in a big way, on a big stage. And, you know, my parents didn't have any money. So even though my mother sewed her clothes, I mean, her focus was on my brothers and I, Jesse, Johnny, and I. And Mrs. Odom, my mother had to go make a big trip to New York. And Mrs. Odom, registered nurse, she was married to a big doctor. She came over to the house with new luggage, and the luggage was filled with new clothes with tags on them. She had bought these clothes for herself. And oh my gosh, it moves me so right now. And she said, Jackie, now you've got to, when you go here, you've got to be well put together. And you're always well put together, but now you take these clothes. My mother was like, Betty, I can't take these clothes. You kidding me? You haven't even worn them yet. She said, oh, go on and wear them and be gorgeous in them. Come on. Now put this with this and this with that. Da, 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 da. Let's get some wigs and let's go. Come on. This luggage is new, Betty. She said, go, Jackie. Go. Goodbye. That's the kind of person she is.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for the record, that was the finger bowl trip.
Oh, my gosh.
With your daddy.
Oh, okay, wait. Well, okay, Dr. Arnold, you got to hear this. You got to hear this story.
No.
Oh, no, I got to tell this one. No. Dr. Arnold, everybody who's still here, Dwight is as unrehearsed as he can be, but he doesn't care. And that's one of the things we love about it. So I think it was a hit. The owner of Time Life wanted to know who this Dr. King was. That's right. They didn't know who Dr. King was. Many of these people didn't even know who Dr. King was, which was like, my mother was like, we're reeling from his murder. And these are people who so far removed and so above it all. I mean, they were, I think it was either a Park Avenue or Fifth Avenue apartment. And they went up to this, they were taken up to the apartment, you know, where the door opens into the apartment. And it was a wealth and opulence that my parents and Dwight had never seen. I mean, not even on TV. It was like, these were the richest people in the world, among them. And so, you know, they were going to have a formal dinner and, you know, they were serving the aperitif. So my mother got a little tipsy because she didn't know what the heck all this stuff was. And so this woman pulled down this $1,000 dress because somebody spilled something on my mother's dress. I mean, the whole bit. So my mother, who, unlike Dwight and my father, has social graces, said, now I know you all do not know what fork to use and what the order of service is. So watch me. Dwight, of course, did not watch my mother. No. So they're serving these courses, and you know how they put the little finger bowl down there with the lemon? So you can clean your hands. Guess who picked up the finger bowl to drink that? It was Dwight. Oh, yeah. And my parents were like, oh, no!
I was, now, Dr. Arnold, they had flown the crew in from France. It was 16 people. They had flown them in from France just to cook the meal. And so it was different serving. So they brought out this silver chalice that was full of flowers and had a lemon on the side. So I looked at it and I kindly took the sugar and started putting the sugar in the finger bowl.
Even though my mother told you, what did my mother tell you, Dwight? Look at me.
Watch me. And so the lady next to me who owned mines in South Africa said to me, she said, oh, you putting sugar in the finger bowl. What's that about? And I said to her, I said, well, what I'm doing is really paying tribute to the sweetness of our ancestors.
Oh.
So I didn't drink it.
Oh, well, according to my parents' legend.
Her daddy never let me live that down.
Today,
never let me live that
today, he said he put that finger bowl to his lips, and your mother and I were like, no.
But the family was the Coles family, Dr. Arnold.
Oh, God.
And they owned prime area. It was one of the richest families of all time. It was an unbelievable experience. We walked in that place. Oh, my God. We had never seen anything like it.
Oh.
It was unbelievable.
And my mother said people were saying, okay, so would you tell us about this Dr. King? Who was he? Ooh.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And my mother was like, she said, your heart's already on the floor. And she said they were living on such a level that they missed all of this. And some people missed.
And they had 3 round marble tables, and they had flown people as wealthy themselves from all over the world there. And they put us at 3 different tables. And one table was Jackie Jackson, the other one was Reverend Jackson, the other one was me. And the people at each table asked us to explain Dr. King and the movement. And they felt so guilty that he gotten killed, whoever he was, that they was going to make a commitment to come close to the rights. But these were the richest people in the world. It was an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. And he almost drank that water. And my parents, in 55 years, have never let him forget it. They have said, we will not take this joker any place else, ever. My mother said, I told you to look at me.
I was only 16.
Oh.
Which about different.
Which explains why my mother, when we were very little, started teaching us about all these forks and whatnot and spoons. And she said, and but he kept on going. He didn't. First of all, he didn't pay any attention to what you said. Watch me. You all don't know where you are. Y'all untrained. You're uncouth. Wow. You gotta hear them tell the story too. I mean, especially both of them, because they're both. I mean, this is like the whole evening. That was a takeaway from the evening for them. That Dwight almost drank from the finger bowl. Oh, I love you all. Let me get out of here, y'all. It's 9:30.
All righty.
And congratulations, Doctor. And Susan is like, "What, Susan? You can't make this stuff up. You can't. We've had some experiences now. We've had some experiences collectively. We've had some, and they have been funny. But what blessings?
Well, I'll tell you and Dwight about some of the things I've done. I'm going to have a good weekend because I don't remember them right now. But.
Oh, well, I'm waiting for your show because I can't wait to see your painting. This I can't wait.
Oh, okay.
I cannot wait. But I'm gonna go vocalize because they're going to have a tribute to Ramsey Lewis on June 22nd in Millennium Park. I'm going to open it up. He lived in his house, his old house. And so now they're going to have a tribute to him in Millennium Park. Bless their hearts. Can't believe Mr. Lewis is out of here. Woof. This is hard.
Hmm.
Well,
I know that is.
but you know, when
time is just going.
yeah, but you know, when you live these great lives, it's sad, Dr. Arnold. You just go, wow, what a life. And he went out on top. You know, went out doing his radio, performing. That's the way you want to do it. Yeah, that's the way you want, because he could. That's because he could. What Susan said, laughter is the best medicine. Yeah, that story is true, though, Susan. He did that. He tried to drink out of that finger bowl. Yeah, he's tried to clean it up 55 years later, but he tried to drink out of that finger bowl, girl. He tried to drink out of the finger bowl. My parents saw him put the sugar in there, and they were like, no. But that whole evening was a comedy of errors for them. I think the only one who didn't have a faux pas was my dad, which was shocking. But you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, it's just like,
exactly.
Wow, just oh no, but look, you can laugh about it. You can laugh about it. I mean, because what did they know? But to show, this is where you understand that some people live some lives, they lead lives that, you know, that are so disconnected from our realities. You know, and that's, you know, I mean, we're down here suffering. They have no idea. No idea.
Well, that's what, you know, they've isolated themselves from the stuff that they don't want to contend with, the things they create, too.
Oh, absolutely. Have you seen all of these magazine covers with King Charles on the cover? It looks like it is so anachronistic in 2023. I'm like, are you serious right now? With all these diamonds and these jewels from other places, and you're not going to give the jewels back? You saw the Ethiopian prince who's buried at Windsor Castle, and they're not going to give him back.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy.
I said, y'all got this royal family. They're a little different. You ain't gonna give this boy back to his relatives.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Okay, you better than me. Gee whiz. But I love you all so much. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get out of here. But I love you. And congratulations, Dr. Arnold Greeley.
Oh.
All the geniuses from the black pool of geniuses, as another Howardite, Donny Hathaway said, Dr. David Arnold, from the black pool of genius. Only Donny Hathaway from the black pool of genius. That's right. And it's all over the place.
It's all over the place.
You know, Ron McNair. Well, you know, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you know, Ron McNair, the astronaut, was taken into. He was an at-risk student when they accepted him at A&T.
Oh, really?
He was at risk.
Yeah, and look at the genius. He was the preeminent astronaut.
Absolutely, and they unlocked it. They unlocked his genius. I remember. Here, when my father spoke at their graduation in '78, and they talked about that, and he talked about that. But then I heard Reverend Dr. Proctor, who had been the president of A&T when my parents were there, and that he was part of his sermon speech. Just what we unlock in each other. The genius. So, Yvonne and Jewel and Susan out there in LA, I'm so appreciative of all of you. I love you all so much and appreciate you more than I can say Linear Bob. Linear Bob said, oh my God, that's an incredible story. That's right. Dwight's an incredible guy. Drinking from that finger bowl. Yes. Okay. Drinking from that finger bowl. I love you all. I love you, Dr. Arnold. My love for the family. Absolutely. Dwight, love you. God bless you, everybody. Have a wonderful day and a great, I was about to say 4th of July weekend. Not quite. Have a great, what is it called? Memorial Day. We just talked about it. See, I think I'm all tapped out. So let me see.
Yeah, we're going forward.
Yeah, I'm like, oh gosh, okay. But thank you so much. Have a great one.
All righty. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.